Chapter 1508. There was too much soul-devouring black fog in the deep cave, causing the cultivator's consciousness to be unable to penetrate it. With the three true spirits Laozu in the lead, all the great divine arts practitioners executed all kinds of lightning spells to bombard the entrance of the deep cave. The soul-devouring black fog that filled the deep cave was completely extinguished by the lightning. Even though these cultivators weren't as proficient in lightning spell divine arts as Yuan family, they could still easily cast normal lightning spells. Of course, there were also cultivators like Lu Ping's Kuei Shui divine lightning who had a deeper understanding of lightning spell divine arts. Close to 20 top great divine arts practitioners in the cultivation world worked together, and in just an instant, they had gone dozens of yards into the deep cave. Xiao Baiyu looked at the surroundings of the deep cave, and his eyes gave off a sharp gleam that was like sword light. He said, "This is indeed a secret cave of Mara, and from the looks of it, there should be a lot of them." Origin Wine Laozi nodded his head. "That's right, looks like when the lightning light lake caved in, most of the Mara inside had been killed. Otherwise, we would have had to face an overwhelming Mara army." Xiang Laozu also said, "In that case, the remaining Mara that could survive from the lightning light lake must be extremely powerful existences, just like those heavenly devils and Azura from before." The three true spirits Laozu seemed to be confirming each other's words, but in reality, they were reminding the dozen or so pure yang cultivators that had followed them down to be careful and not fail miserably. However, at this moment, Lu Ping's attention was on the true spirit cultivator with the surname Xiang. Even though there were many surnames among the demon race cultivators, the surname Xiang was mostly used by the Sky Hegemon divine tortoise race. Lu Ping was confident that with the power of the three pure true pupils, he would be able to clearly see the true body of Xiang Laozu, but in this way, he would definitely be detected. Ever since Lu Ping obtained the Soaring Dragon Galaxy spell, and learned about the true effect of the Samling Five Elements leaf, he had been wary of Taoist Gui because of the Five Elements tortoise. Since Pingdaoren was able to make the Yuan family stay, Taoist Gui, who had probably been hiding his true strength, might also have a backup plan. If Lu Ping's guess was correct, as the only direct descendant of Taoist Gui, the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle Clan was the most likely executor of Taoist Gui's plan. There were 3 true spirit cultivators and 17 pure yang cultivators. Almost half of the human and demon race's powerful cultivators were gathered here. Although the 3 true spirits warned everyone to be careful, they were still sweeping the way. Although there were still many high-level demon luos, they were instantly killed by everyone. There were many heavenly demons and Azura existences among them. Although it was dark in the deep cave, after the soul-devouring black mist was removed, it could not hide everyone's sight. However, at this time, Lu Ping estimated that everyone had already descended more than 300 meters into the deep cave. The battle was still going on, but it was not a tangled battle, but a one-sided massacre. The collapse of the Thunderlight Lake had killed most of the low-level Mara in the deep cave, and most of the remaining high-level Mara were also badly injured. Although they were still advancing one after another, they did not have the human sea tactic of the Mara army, which was fearless of death. Finally, 500 meters deep into the deep cave, everyone saw the still flickering faint lightning. This was the end of the deep cave. The Thunderlight Lake had already seeped into the underground soil, and the Thunderlight Lake, which had been smashed down by the Longhui ancestor with its tail, was nowhere to be seen, as if it had disappeared. Only Lu Ping knew that after the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash was successfully forged, the calabash's body had completely turned into lightning. Instead of saying that the purple-skinned calabash was the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash's true body, it was more accurate to say that it was the condensation of the calabash's lightning source. The tail of the Longhui ancestor had actually completely shattered this famous number 1 divine weapon for opening the heavens. The lightning source had turned into over 10 bolts, with half of them falling into the Yuan family's camp and turning into a lightning lake. The remaining 7/8 scattered into the world, with one of them being collected by the little Thunder Gourd in Lu Ping's core space. The weak 7 treasure Thunder Gourd did not seem to have the elegance of the number 1 divine weapon for opening the heavens, being shattered by a perfection realm true spirit cultivator. But the truth was like this. Although the 7 treasure thunder gourd was strong and was known as the #1 divine weapon for opening the heavens, its body was very weak. In reality, the 7 treasures lightning calabash itself was not a spirit treasure specially used in battle. It was originally refined by Taoist Ping to condense the source of lightning, a tool to help him advance to the 8th true spirit realm. When the 7 treasure thunder gourd was in Ping Doran's hands, the other heaven-opening Laozu, including Jiao Daoran, knew this weakness of the 7 treasure thunder gourd. However, no one, including Jiao Daoran, could shatter the 7 treasure thunder gourd in Ping Doran's hands. Chapter 1509. After Yuan Feixiang secretly returned to Middle-earth from the North Sea, he did not return to the Yuan clan. Instead, he went to the southern region of Middle-earth. As a strong competitor for the Yuan clan's future family head, he was very clear about the consequences of his family's 2 pure young experts losing their lives in the North Sea because of his insistence. Those in the clan who opposed him inheriting the position of family head, as well as other competitors, would definitely use this as an excuse to counterattack. In order to overthrow him as the successor and eliminate hidden dangers, it was not impossible to take the opportunity to kill him. The death of 2 pure young cultivators was a huge crime that would shake the clan's foundation. Yuan Feixiang knew that he no longer had the possibility of competing for the position of family head, but he still wanted to fight for it. Not for the position of family head, but for the position in the clan, the position where he would not be abandoned. Therefore, he wanted to hide himself and wait until he transcended the 3rd lightning tribulation and became a pure yang before returning to the clan. This way, he would not be punished. Since the beginning of the Yuan clan, it had been burdened with a mysterious mission. This mission allowed the Yuan clan to easily become the #1 clan, second only to the 6 sacred lands. However, it also prevented the cultivators of the Yuan clan from attaining the true spirit realm. Pure young cultivators were the clan's top combat power. As long as Yuan Feixiang could attain the pure young realm, he was confident that no one in the entire Yuan clan would be his match. What a pity, what a pity! I was so close to defeating that Jinling. That damned Lu Tianping. If not for his schemes, how could my 2 pure young uncles have fallen in the North Sea? How could I, Yuan Feixiang, have fallen to such a state? All of this is because of that Lu Tianping. I, Yuan Feixiang, will fight you and Jinling to the death for as long as I live. Yuan Feixiang was flying through a mountain ridge in the southern region of Middle-earth, trying to find an ideal place to set up a temporary cave abode for cultivation. But at this moment, the space in front of Yuan Feixiang suddenly trembled. Yuan Feixiang was shocked, and the light under her feet slowed down. A purple gold gourd appeared above her head. Yuan Feixiang had also refined the 7 treasures thunder calabash. Although he had some understanding of the 7 treasures thunder calabash's nature, the 7 treasures thunder calabash's tyrannical attack power and great reputation still fascinated him. The turbulent space suddenly shattered, and a purple lightning suddenly exploded above Yuan Feixiang's head, catching him off guard. The 7 treasures thunder calabash floating above his head suddenly swayed as if it was drunk, and was about to fall from his head. Yuan Feixiang was startled. He hurriedly circulated his jinyuan to stabilize the 7 thunder gem calabash above his head. At the same time, his divine sense sank into the calabash. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Thunder origin! How can it be thunder origin? Could it be? Impossible! This is impossible!" Yuan Feixiang's calm expression suddenly turned into panic and disbelief. Her excited expression also took on a layer of madness. Suddenly, there was an explosion under her feet, and the light turned into a bolt of lightning and flew towards the north. However, just as Yuan Feixiang's light was about to fly out of the mountain range, suddenly, there were several lights at the foot of the mountain opposite him. At the same time, there were continuous cries of alarm. "Mara, how can Mara appear? Hasn't the disaster of Mara already passed 100 years ago? How can it appear again? Fellow Taoist in front, come and help. Ah, that's the thunder escape, it's the senior of the Yuan clan." We are saved, Senior Yuan, save us! Amidst the shouts and cries for help, a cloud of black mist surged up from the foot of the mountain. The eerie shimmering light and the strange howling sound were all very familiar to Yuan Feixiang. Yuan Feixiang was startled, and his expression changed. No one knew what he was thinking, but the light under his feet stopped again. At this moment, the dozens of lights that were asking for help before had already arrived in front of Yuan Feixiang. These people were just some rogue cultivators around the blood condensation realm. Yuan Feixiang scanned with his divine sense, and found that the group of Mara chasing behind them was just a team of a few dozen Mara led by a few big Mara. These rogue cultivators had already felt the unfathomable aura of Yuan Feixiang. Seeing Yuan Feixiang hovering in the air motionlessly, they ran behind him to seek shelter. Mara's team rushed over, but all they saw was a lightning net rising in front of them, followed by blood-curdling screams. When the lightning dissipated, the rogue cultivators hiding behind Yuan Feixiang finally saw the situation in front of them clearly. Before the broken limbs fell from the sky, they had already turned into spiritual energy and dissipated. After witnessing Yuan Feixiang's invincible might, the blood condensation rogue cultivators thanked him loudly. Their voices were filled with flattery in Russian. Yuan Feixiang's might was unparalleled, and he annihilated the Mara army that almost wiped out their entire army with a flip of his hand. Yuan Feixiang smiled faintly and said, "How did you guys meet Mara?" As soon as Yuan Feixiang spoke, everyone fell silent. After a while, a late-stage blood condensation realm cultivator who seemed to be the leader said respectfully, "Senior, we don't know either. We were gathering spirit herbs at the foot of the mountain when a few dozen Mara appeared out of nowhere. We were no match for them and half of us were injured or killed before we managed to escape here. Fortunately, Senior saved us. We are very grateful." "Oh, Mara suddenly appeared? You guys didn't hear about Mara's appearance before?" Yuan Feixiang blinked and asked. The friar shook his head and said, "No, I didn't. When I was still a blood condensation realm minor repairs, I was also in the late stage of Mara's great tribulation. Since then, I haven't heard about Mara's appearance in the cultivation world for the past 100 years. Didn't Mara's great tribulation pass? Why did he suddenly appear again?" "Oh, so you guys don't know either?" Yuan Feixiang narrowed her eyes and muttered to herself, "Looks like something really happened to the Yuan clan." When the late-stage blood condensation realm cultivator heard Yuan Feixiang's muttering, he instinctively felt that something was amiss. Wasn't this senior in front of him a cultivator from the Yuan clan? How could Mara's appearance be related to Yuan clan? The cultivator was startled. Just as he was about to ask Yuan Feixiang, he saw Yuan Feixiang looking at him. The cultivator's heart sank. Yuan Feixiang's eyes flashed with Yuan Feixiang's undisguised killing intent. The cultivator was shocked. Before the light under his feet lit up, a small lightning bolt had already pierced his eyes. The cultivator tried to turn his head to say something, but the lightning bolt had already exploded in his brain. Blood gushed out from his eyes, ears, nostrils, and mouth. What did you do to Brother Wen? You killed Brother Wen." The other cultivators saw Yuan Feixiang's sudden change of heart and screamed in fear. Then, they saw Yuan Feixiang walking towards them with a dangerous expression. It was obvious that she was looking at a group of dead people. "Run, run, he wants to kill us." Yuan Feixiang spread her hands to the left and right. Two lightning nets like the one that killed Mara spread out, trapping the cultivators who were trying to escape. "Senior, spare us, we don't know anything," Yuan Feixiang sneered. She suddenly put her hands together. Lightning flashed in the lightning net, turning the cultivators into ashes. The source of lightning has dispersed, and Mara has reappeared. This is the true destruction of the Seven Thunder Treasures calabash. The top secret that the Yuan clan has protected for generations is revealed to the world. From now on, I'm afraid there will be no more Yuan clan. How can I let you leak the news of my clan's existence here? So, you must die." Yuan Feixiang raised her head and looked at the sky. When her face sank, it was much heavier. "So the Yuan clan has been destroyed? Then, what should I do now? Take revenge? No. It's not revenge now. It's to figure out what happened in the Shang Mountain. How many people from the Yuan clan have escaped? If the Yuan clan has really been destroyed, the Mara that was born will certainly go out of control. Then, the whole cultivation world will certainly have another Mara disaster. However, it's impossible to give birth to too many Mara in 100 years. The number of high-level Mara is even fewer. I'm afraid that they will be extinguished before they can cause much trouble. An existence that can destroy the Yuan clan is definitely not something that I can provoke now. If the secret that the Yuan clan guarded is discovered, then the Yuan clan will certainly become the enemy of the whole cultivation world. There will no longer be a place for the descendants of the Yuan clan in this world. The most important thing now is to hide. Live. Continue the bloodline of the Yuan clan. At the bottom of the deep cave in the center of the Shang Mountain, Lu Ping fully displayed the 3 pure true pupils and finally saw the figures in the 3 light balls on the altar. In the light ball on the left was a slightly fat old man. The white hair on the middle of his head had already fallen off. In the middle was a middle-aged scholar with a 3-inch-long beard. He looked rather refined. The last one was a middle-aged man with dark skin and a fierce demeanor. He looked dignified even without being angry. Lu Ping did not recognize any of these 3 people. However, he could see that the 3 of them were no longer alive. However, it still made Lu Ping feel a deep sense of fear. Even though they were already dead, they were still able to make a pure yang cultivator like Lu Ping feel threatened. What kind of existence were these 3 people when they were alive? Uncle Dan Zhu. Yuan Jiu Laozu's eyes were wide open. He leaped forward and was about to break the light ball. Chapter 15:10. Dan Zhu Laozu. That middle-aged scholarly-looking cultivator in the middle was actually Dan Zhu Laozu? A chill rose from Lu Ping's heart, causing Lu Ping to feel a chill in his heart. Didn't Crystal Palace's Dan Zhu Laozu already go to the North Ice Plains after his battle with Xiao Baiyu in the East Sea? How could he appear here? How could he possibly appear here? And he appeared here without any signs of life. Xiao Baiyu reached out his hand and patted the shoulder of Yuan Jiu Laozu, who was about to step forward, to stop Yuan Jiu Laozu, who was about to rush forward, and said, "Yuan Jiu brother, be careful! It seems that Senior Dan Zhu has already fallen, but it is really strange for him to appear here, in case of danger." Yuan Jiu Laozu immediately sobered up, and nodded towards Xiao Baiyu, saying, "Brother Xiao, thank you." Xiao Baiyu gave a faint smile, and withdrew his hand from Yuan Jiu Laozu's shoulder. If it was a normal time, Yuan Jiu Laozu would not have given Xiao Baiyu the chance to pat his shoulder. If a cultivator's shoulder was so easily patted by someone else, didn't that mean that his life and death were completely in the hands of others? However, Yuan Jiu Laozu's mind was clearly in a mess because of the sudden appearance of Dan Zhu Laozu's corpse on the altar at the bottom of the deep cave. At this time, if Xiao Baiyu had any evil intentions, Yuan Jiu Laozu's life would be in his hands. Isn't the old man on the right 9 mystical towers true spirit cultivator Jiu Xian Laozu? The one who spoke was the pure yang cultivator from Purple Sun Palace who had previously argued with Xiao Baiyu. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, this pure yang cultivator continued. Old man was fortunate enough to meet this Laozu twice before he became a true spirit cultivator. It was when Mara besieged 9 mystical tower. The previous generation true spirit cultivator of 9 mystical tower used the 7-feathered fan to break Mara's siege. After that, he had no choice but to go to the North Ice Plains. If not for that time, the true spirit cultivator of 9 mystical tower would not have no successors. This pure yang cultivator from Purple Sun Palace looked at Xiao Baiyu and Lu Ping, and directly asked, "But Jiu Xian Laozu clearly went to the North Ice Plains. Why would he appear here?" This pure yang cultivator naturally understood what this pure yang cultivator meant. If 9 mystical towers first generation true spirit cultivator Jiu Xian Laozu was still in charge, how could there be 10 pure yang cultivators besieging 9 mystical tower? How could the 9 mystical tower be destroyed just like that? Xiao Baiyu, Lu Ping, and the rest would not have obtained the true spirit inheritance of 9 mystical tower. The true spirit cultivators Danju Laozu and Jiuxian Laozu, who had already gone to the North Ice Plains, appeared at the bottom of this deep cave at the same time. This naturally proved that what the Longhua ancestor said was true. Ever since the world was opened, all the true spirit cultivators who had entered the North Ice Plains had not left this world. Instead, their bodies and souls had been completely destroyed, and even their corpses had appeared here. This was indeed a huge conspiracy, a conspiracy that shook the entire cultivation world. Xian Laozu, who was at the side, also spoke at this moment with a bitter smile. The one on the right is a true spirit cultivator from my goblin clan. General Yuan, do you know this person? General Yuan Poyu of the wise Great Ape clan, who had already been shocked by the truth in front of him, immediately came back to his senses. He looked at Xian Laozu and said, "This Goblin Clan senior should be the previous clan leader of the multicolored Tiger Clan. He went to the North Ice Plains after becoming a true spirit 200 years ago. The rise of the multicolored Tiger Clan in the recent hundreds of years is due to the foundation laid by this previous clan leader." The pure Yang cultivator of the Purple Sun Palace snorted coldly. The Purple Sun Palace and the Western Wilderness Goblin Alliance had fought a series of battles, and the multicolored Tiger Clan was one of the important participants in the Goblin Alliance. When Yuan Poyu heard the pure Yang cultivator of the Purple Sun Palace snorted, he said with a bitter smile, "What's the point of being calculative about the gains and losses now? Everyone here is a top-notch existence in this world, and all of you have the possibility of becoming a true spirit cultivator in the future. What's the purpose of us cultivating to become pure Yang and true spirits? Isn't it to break away from the barriers of this world? However, the formation that leads to this world in the North Ice Plains is actually a scheme like this. What's the point of us cultivating for hundreds or even thousands of years?" Yuan Poyu's words caused many of the pure Yang cultivators present to feel disheartened. There was no gate to this world at all, and true spirit cultivators entering the formation in the North Ice Plains would only lead to death. If they stayed in this world, they would only be waiting for heavenly punishment. Thousands of years of bitter cultivation in exchange for an existence with no future or future. It was fine if their lifespans were exhausted, but it was actually a situation where the heavens and earth could not tolerate them sending themselves to death. Then what was the point of bitter cultivation? Everyone here was people who had experienced hundreds or thousands of years of tempering. It could be said that everyone's temperament was firm and indomitable. However, when faced with such a scene where the faith and foundation in their hearts suddenly collapsed, endless despair surged in everyone's heart. They would die either way, so what was the point of cultivating? "Of course it's useful!" Xiao Baiyu loudly shouted. "Don't forget that the heaven-splitting seventh patriarch is not a being of our world, so where did they come from? If they can come here, then they naturally have a path to leave. So what if they do? The passage to the North Ice Plains is a trap. Other than the North Ice Plains, who else knows where the passage to the outside of this world is?" Yuan Poyu clearly still had a pessimistic attitude. "Since there's no other passage, then we'll continue to the North Ice Plains and open this passage." "Easy for you to say. The person who could set up such a shocking trap must be the heaven-splitting seventh patriarch. Our cultivation originally originated from the 49 true teachings passed down by the heaven-splitting seventh patriarch. Do you think we can break through their trap?" The heaven-splitting seventh patriarch, a heavy name, now represented a kind of betrayal to the entire cultivation world. At least in the eyes of Lu Ping and the others, it was a kind of betrayal. If the person who set up the trap was really the heaven-splitting seventh patriarch, then it was not a betrayal at all. Perhaps in their eyes, it was only a kind of harvest after paying a price. Lu Ping suddenly shouted, "Everyone, have we forgotten about the Longhua ancestor? Him? He can't even protect himself under the heavenly punishment, and whether he's still alive is a problem." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Don't you find it strange? From the beginning until the end, Ancestor Longhua seemed to have expected everything that would occur since the beginning. In fact, all of these predictions of his have been verified before our very eyes. He even accurately calculated the 7 treasure lightning calabash, So could it be that he didn't think of the heavenly wrath? What do you mean? Finally, a pure young cultivator asked. Are you saying that this person can survive the heavenly punishment? Lu Ping smiled calmly and said, surviving is not the key. The key is that although he's the blood descendant of Jiao Daoren, or even a backup clone of Jiao Daoren, he's also a living being of this world, a living being who has broken away from the shackles of Jiao Daoren and has his own consciousness. Let me ask you, under such circumstances, doesn't he want to break away from this world to find a higher starting point? Doesn't he want to live forever? What are you trying to say? What I want to say is, Lu Ping said solemnly, the Longhua ancestor is the same as us, he also wants to break away from this world. However, he also knows about the conspiracy of the northern ice plains since the creation of the heavens. So, doesn't his actions after becoming a true spirit prove something? Xiang Laozu suddenly interrupted at this moment. What Lu Xiaoyu means is that if the Longhua ancestor really has the confidence to break away from the northern ice plains, there's no need for him to cause so much trouble. Exactly. Since that Longhua also doesn't have the confidence to break away from the northern ice plains, then what's the point of saying all this? Lu Ping lightly sighed in his heart. This kind of blow that came from fate seemed to have caused these existences that could summon the wind and summon the rain in the past to lose their basic ability to judge, or it could be said that they couldn't be bothered to think about it. Lu Ping explained helplessly. That's naturally because the Longhua ancestor has a way to open up a path to the outside world in the northern ice plains. However, it's clearly impossible for him to do it alone. Someone finally came to a realization and said, he really has a way. Otherwise, why would he sit down and do all this? Lu Ping replied resolutely. Then should we go find him now? I hope he hasn't perished under the heavenly punishment. Everyone, what we need to do now isn't to find the Longhua ancestor and ask him clearly, but to see if we can become a true spirit in 500 years and join forces with the Longhua ancestor to enter the northern ice plains. Of course we need to find the Longhua ancestor. Then shouldn't we discuss how to deal with these 3 altars and the 3 true spirit cultivators' corpses on them? Origin Wine Laozu was already annoyed by these people. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew that the Longhua ancestor's plans were related to his life and death, Origin Wine Laozu would have chased these noisy pure yang cultivators away a long time ago. Those pure yang cultivators that had lost their confidence because of the 3 true spirit corpses had no chance of becoming a true spirit. Chapter 15:11. Just as Yuanzhou Laozu finished speaking, Lu Ping, who had been staring at the altar the whole time, suddenly cried out, Look! Yuanzhou Laozu was startled. When he looked up, he saw that the altar below Danzhu Laozu's body suddenly lit up with a layer of blood-red light. Then, complex runes began to light up on the altar, and the entire altar astonishingly turned into a formation. This deep cave was filled with spiritual energy. It was clear that it was where the Yuan family's large spiritual vein gathered. The 3 altars in front of them were right on top of the spiritual vein, allowing the formations on the 3 altars to be activated at any time. As the formation activated, Danzhu Laozu's body that was floating above the formation suddenly trembled. Strands of golden red light began to gather below Danzhu Laozu's body. Finally, a ball of golden light left Danzhu Laozu's body and crashed into the altar. After this ball of golden light left Danzhu Laozu's body, the originally lifelike Danzhu Laozu's body suddenly became abnormally gray. It was almost as gray as Jiuxian Laozu's body on the left, but it looked much better than the multicolored tiger tribe leader's body on the right. Perhaps it was because he was the first of the 3 true spirit cultivators to enter the northern ice fields. The body of the multicolored tiger clan leader on the right looked like it was about to be eroded by the wind. Perhaps because he was the first of the 3 true spirit cultivators to enter the northern ice fields. This looks like the source essence condensed in Danzhu Laozu's body after he advanced to the true spirit realm. Yuanzhou Laozu asked in a surprised voice. His tone seemed to be filled with disbelief. Xiao Baiyu nodded and said, It looks like it. After Danzhu Laozu died, The opponent used some unknown method to prevent the source essence in Danzhu Laozu's body from dissipating. Then they used this method to absorb this source essence. But what is this source essence used for? What is it used for? For a moment, everyone seemed to have thought of something. A howl came from afar, from small to loud. The altar shone brightly, but it did not come from Danzhu Laozu's altar, which had a lump of origin land absorbed earlier. Instead, it came from the altar under the multicolored tiger clan's patriarch on the right. A heavenly demon with a pale face fell out of the altar. Black soul-devouring mist seeped out from the heavenly demon's body and began to slowly gather. Following that, a few more flashes of light flashed one after another, and 4 azuras fell from the void above the altar one after another, just in time to guard the heavenly demon. It really is the source of Mara's appearance. After the true spirit cultivators that entered the northern ice plains fell, the source energy condensed in their bodies was actually the source of Mara's appearance. Xiao Baiyu's words made everyone feel a chill run down their spines. That multicolored tiger clan leader entered the northern ice plains 200 years ago, and according to the 4 batches of high-level Mara that were summoned after being absorbed, it would take at least 50 years for each batch to be nurtured. That should be the case, otherwise the great calamity of Mara would not happen once in 1,000 years. After this multicolored tiger clan leader's corpse, who do you think will be the next true spirit cultivator to be sent over? Everyone was speechless at the same time, falling into a strange silence for a moment. It seems like after Marshal Uncle Danzhu went to the northern ice plains, I haven't heard of any true spirit cultivators from the cultivation world going to the northern ice plains. As soon as Yuanjiu Laozu's voice fell, the altar where the multicolored tiger clan leader was before suddenly flashed with the special white light of a teleportation array. After the light fell, a female true spirit cultivator's body suddenly appeared on the altar. A ball of light gathered from the altar and wrapped around the female true spirit cultivator's body before slowly rising up and floating above the altar. Who is this person? Xiao Baiyu asked Yuanjiu Laozu and Xiang Laozu. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be any female true spirit cultivators among the 5 sacred grounds. Yuanjiu Laozu shook his head, then looked at the surrounding pure yang cultivators, as if testing if his words were correct. She doesn't look like a Yao cultivator. Xiang Laozu also shook his head. That means she might be a hidden cultivator. Yuanjiu Laozu guessed. After all, there are too many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in this world. There might be powerful existences that we've never heard of. Not long after the female true spirit cultivator appeared on the altar, the strange runes on the altar appeared again. Strands of source essence were extracted from the female true spirit cultivator's body, gradually gathering into a cyan red light that was injected into the altar. The female true spirit cultivator's body also started to dim, but it was much better than Danzhu Laozu and Jiushuan Laozu beside him. It seems like every true spirit cultivator can have their source essence extracted at least 4 times in this altar. 4 times in 200 years, 3 altars, and the cycle of the great calamity of Mara is 1,000 years. In other words, there will be at least 60 extraterrestrial demons and more than 200 azuras here in 1,000 years. Where do the large and small Mara, as well as the blood Mara and jade Mara come from? In short, this deep cave is far from enough. Or it could be said that this deep cave under the Yuan family is where the sky demons and azuras come from. There are other things like the deep cave altars in other places, so there can be other high-level Mara and large and small Mara coming from there. That's reasonable. Since it's like this, we should just destroy this altar. Let's bury this deep cave too. It's better if we don't, we should just destroy the altar. It's best if we send people to monitor this deep cave to prevent other accidents from happening. Hong Long Long! The 3 altars were destroyed by the 3 true spirit cultivators. The source Wine Laozu said to the surrounding pure yang cultivators. Everyone here has personally seen what the Longhua ancestor has done, and what we will do after today. I hope that when we return to our sects and tribes, we can spread this news. Even if the Yuan family is not the mastermind behind this plot, they are still the main accomplice. Therefore, From now on, the Yuan family will no longer exist in this world. Moreover, Patriarch Long Huai's words from before have already been verified. Everyone, cultivate properly. Earlier, all of us who had just advanced into the true spirit realm made a 500-year agreement with Patriarch Long Huai. In 500 years, all of us will head to the northern ice plains together to find out the truth. Whether we live or die will depend on this trip. If everyone is willing, then we'll head there together. Chapter 1512. Yuan Jiu Laozu brought back Danju Laozu's corpse, while Jiu Xian Laozu's and the female true spirit cultivator's corpses were buried by everyone nearby. After all, they were true spirit cultivators, and out of the most basic respect, no one could bear to abandon them. Many pure yang cultivators joined hands to make a simple but extremely grand funeral. Although the sacrificial altar in the deep cave where Shang Mountain was located had been destroyed, there was still an extremely strong evil aura emanating from the deep cave. This evil aura would not cause any harm to high-level cultivators, but if an earth-stage cultivator stayed in the evil aura for too long, they would lose their minds. So in the end, some people were left to guard the place. These people were able to use the source of a fallen true spirit cultivator to create Mara's method, which was enough to make everyone feel a lingering fear. The Battle of Shang Mountain spread throughout the entire cultivation world with the return of many pure yang cultivators. The Yuan clan suddenly fell from the clouds, and the disciples of the Yuan clan who were respected by everyone in the past had now become street rats. Although the base of the Yuan clan had been completely destroyed, many disciples of the Yuan clan were still scattered throughout the cultivation world. During the Battle of Shang Mountain, many disciples of the Yuan clan had secretly escaped, but now these people had become the targets of the entire cultivation world's encirclement. Soon, when the cultivators surrounded some disciples of the Yuan clan who were scattered throughout the cultivation world but did not receive the news that the Yuan clan had been destroyed, they dug out caves similar to the ones in Shang Mountain from the depths of their base. There were also a number of Mara, the same sacrificial altar, and the same strange array hidden in them. The only difference was that these altars did not have the source of a true spirit cultivator for them to extract. Instead, they used the operation of the array on the sacrificial altar to collect a kind of evil aura from the soil, and this evil aura was exactly the same as the evil aura that had been emitted in the depths of Shang Mountain. In order to figure out this situation, under the entrustment of Yuan Jiu Laozu and the others, Lu Ping once again went to the Dahai Parish secret land to consult the Longhuai ancestor. After the Battle of Mount Shang, old ancestor Longhuai shattered the seven thunder treasures calabash and attracted the heavenly punishment. However, old ancestor Longhuai relied on his powerful cultivation to persevere all the way to the Eastern Sea's secret perished ground. Then, with the help of the myriad Empyrean poison wall, he used some unknown method to deceive the heavenly punishment. However, the Longhuai ancestor still suffered extremely serious injuries because of this. Lu Ping and the others originally planned to come to the parish secret land after the Battle of Shang Mountain, but they learned that the Longhuai ancestor was injured, and needed to Luo Ping and needed to come to heal. Ping. 50 years later, when Lu Ping came to consult the Longhuai ancestor curled his lips and said, "There's nothing much to say about this evil spirit. It is just the evil spirit of a cultivator who has fallen, the killing spirit." Killing spirit? Evil spirit? The Longhuai ancestor nodded. His injuries had not fully healed, and his face still looked a little gloomy. Obviously, the heavenly punishment 50 years ago had a great impact on him. However, he still explained to Lu Ping, "These are all the works of Ping Daoren. Ping Daoren's puppet secret technique is unparalleled in the world. However, in the memory that Jiao Daoren left me, it recorded that Ping Daoren once obtained some incomplete books about the cultivation of the demon race and the Azura race. I think the Mara in this world was created by combining these incomplete books with his puppet secret technique." At this point, the Longhuai ancestor seemed to have completely transformed into Jiao Daoren. Even the corners of his mouth curled up in disdain towards Ping Daoren. He said, "What Azura? The true demon race and the Azura race roam the universe. They are not weaker than the heavenly Pung, divine dragon, and other races. How can these random things in his hands be compared to them? This is an insult to the demon race and the Azura race. Senior, you mean that the mastermind behind these things is Pung Daoran? The Longhua ancestor looked at Lu Ping and nodded. That's right. Only Pung Daoran? The Longhua ancestor thought for a moment and said, In the memories that I've received about Jiao Daoran, these are all Pung Daoran's arrangements and conspiracies. Then when did Senior obtain these memories from Jiao Daoran? Brat, don't you believe in the old man? Lu Ping smiled and said, This brat is too rash. Let me change my question. Where did these slaughter chi and baleful chi come from? Naturally, they come from the grudges and killings in this world. Then why did Pung Daoran do this? The Longhua ancestor narrowed his eyes and said, Yes, why? Jiao Daoran's memories tell me that Pung Daoran is not dead. He should still be in this world. These Mara's calamity, slaughter chi, and baleful chi should be related to his escape. This is also the root cause of the Mara's calamity. Pung Daoran is not dead? Senior, do you mean that the other Laozu may be dead? The Longhua ancestor suddenly became alert. He stared at Lu Ping with a faint smile and said, Brat, are you trying to get information from the old man? Haha, don't worry. The old man is not afraid to tell you that there are some things that even the old man only knows a little through the memories of Jiao Daoran. But I believe that all the mysteries will be revealed after 450 years. At that time, you will naturally know everything. Now you should think about how to condense the real spirit. When Lu Ping left the secret place, he thought of the few lines of words that Jiao Daoran left on Wan Daoist's handkerchief. The Battle of the North Sea is related to the Xiantian. For you, I will kill all the way to the heaven and earth, only death awaits. Jinling North Sea. The giant island of Failing Island had merged with Tianling Island in Jinling to form a new giant island, True Spirit Island. With the addition of the two spiritual veins, there were almost more than 2 giant spiritual veins on True Spirit Island. There were pavilions everywhere, green trees, dense spiritual chi, and dense spiritual gardens. True Spirit Island now looked like a paradise on earth. The foundation and momentum of a big sect were completely visible on this island. At this time, behind the top of Tianling Mountain, there was a chaos that people could not see clearly. At night, one could see that behind the top of Tianling Mountain, there were 7 stars in the shape of a spoon, shining dazzlingly in the void. These 7 stars were not any of the limited dark stars that could be seen in the night sky of this world. In fact, they were not real stars, but the real body of the 7-star grotto heaven. In just a few more days, the 7-star grotto heaven could truly be fixed on True Spirit Island. The 7-star grotto heaven was not like Failing Island. It was a spatial spiritual treasure that swam in the void. Although Jinling had set up a formation on Huangli Island to capture the 7-star grotto heaven's body in the void, the foundation of the 7-star grotto heaven's existence was dependent on the void. Therefore, although Jinling had moved the 7-star grotto heaven to True Spirit Island, the 7-star grotto heaven still had to stay in the void. As a result, it looked unusually illusory, like the stars in the sky. Although the location of the 7-star grotto heaven had not been fixed in the void, Jinling could already enter and exit it at will. Therefore, a comprehensive survey of the 7-star grotto heaven was already in progress. Apart from the group of palaces in the center of the 7-star grotto heaven that was sealed by the void formation, almost all the other areas in the 7-star grotto heaven had been surveyed. On the other hand, the void grand array formation that sealed the 7 Stars Palace was created by the 7-star gentleman. It consisted of 5 true spirit realm cultivators and 2 pure yang realm cultivators. Even if Jinling's sect knew the structure of the grand array formation, Lu Ping wouldn't be able to open it before he became a true spirit. Inside the true spirit hall, the sect master Lu Tianling saw that Lu Ping had returned and said, Uncle Master Tian Shua's lifespan is coming to an end. It should be soon. If you have time, you can go to Frost Island and send her on her last journey. Another first-generation cultivator of the sect was going to die. At this moment, even Lu Ping himself was filled with sadness. Jinling was thriving, while the older generation of cultivators was gradually dying. Not only the first-generation cultivators, but many second-generation cultivators who were close to Lu Ping were also gradually dying because they did not achieve the Dharma realm. Lu Ping sighed and said, "Disciple understands. I wonder how Senior Grandmaster Tianxiang is doing now?" Lu Tianling said, "He is still quite healthy. The backlash from using the seven-colored feather has already healed, but he is still a person with a lifespan of more than 1,000 years. How many more years does he have left?" Uncle Master Tian Shui's death was a big blow to him, who is used to seeing life and death. After all, our sect only has 2 first-generation cultivators left. After saying that, both of them felt touched, but for a moment they were silent. After a long time, Lu Tianling said, "Your 5th senior sister is still not willing to return to North Sea?" Lu Ping smiled awkwardly and said, "A few days ago, Uncle Master Tianqin also went to East Sea to persuade her, but senior sister said that North Sea's climate is too cold compared to East Sea, so she is not willing to go north. Maybe she still can't get over it." Lu Tianling sighed and said, "Forget it, let her be." In the blink of an eye, Lu Tianling stared at Lu Ping with a smile that was not a smile and said, "I heard that Tianying is already pregnant. Have you been accompanying her in East Sea?" Lu Ping was even more embarrassed. His face and ears were red, but he did not know what to say. In the end, it was Lu Tianling who said, "When the child grows up, bring him back to North Sea and let me see him." Lu Ping hurriedly nodded and agreed. Chapter 15-13. Dad! Dad! When Lu Qinzhang and Lu Qinyu saw Lu Ping return from the teleportation array, they quickly went up to greet him. Lu Ping glanced at the two of them, and a hint of relief flashed across his face. He then said in a serious tone, "What are you 2 little brats up to this time?" Lu Qinzhang laughed foolishly, but didn't say anything. Lu Qinyu's eyes darted around, and she quickly went up to Lu Ping and hugged his arm. She said in a sweet voice, "Dad, brother and I are going to Scarlet Mist Island for an adventure." Lu Ping laughed involuntarily. "Scarlet Mist Island? Does your mother agree?" Lu Qinzhang's silly smile immediately turned into one of embarrassment. Lu Qinyu looked at her brother and rolled her eyes at him. She shook Lu Ping's arm and said, Dad, Mom is in charge of the entire Huangli Island now. She doesn't have time to care about us. Just let us go. Besides, it's not just the 2 of us. There are a few other martial nephews with similar cultivation as us. If everyone goes, it won't be good if only the 2 of us don't go." "Yes. Yes." Lu Qinzhang nodded vigorously, agreeing with his sister. Lu Ping glanced at the 2's necks and found that they were wearing a sword-shaped ornament. He smiled and said, "You 2 are now blood condensation cultivators. The North Sea is very safe now, so you 2 can go wherever you want. But as for Scarlet Mist Island, just play on the outside. Don't go into the depths of the island. With your cultivation, it will be very bad if you go there." Lu Qinyu was overjoyed to hear her father agree. She jumped and shook Lu Ping's arm, saying, "I know, Dad. Your daughter knows that Dad is the best." Seeing his son and daughter happily walking out of the island, Lu Ping smiled and shook his head, then walked towards the depths of the island. When Lu Qinzhang and Lu Qinyu saw Lu Ping's figure disappear, they immediately jumped up. Lu Qinyu clapped her hands and said, "Dad finally agreed to let us leave the island." Lu Qinzhang's face was also full of joy as he said, "Yes, this time we can travel the entire North Sea." When he spoke up to hear, Lu Qinzhang seemed to have thought of something and said, Why don't we not go to the Eastern Sea? If Father and Mother find out, they'll definitely be worried." Lu Qinyu rolled her eyes and said, Brother, we already agreed. Why did you change your mind? What's so fun about the North Sea? I've secretly read the travel records of our father when he was young. The East Sea is much bigger than the North Sea. Moreover, when our father was our age, he had already occupied a small island in the East Sea perished mystery land with his bare hands. Do you think we can't beat our father if we work together? Lu Qinyu paused here, then looked at Lu Qinzhang provocatively and said, "Brother, you can't be afraid, right?" When Lu Qinzhang heard this, his face instantly turned red. He said, "Who's afraid?" "I'm afraid that you'll encounter danger in the Eastern Sea. I've also read Father's travel records. The Parish Mystery Land is very chaotic, but if Father can do it, I can do it too." Lu Qinyu clapped her hands and said with a smile, "That's right. We have a lot of talisman treasures, talisman weapons, magic treasures, and talismans from our father, mother, and martial uncles. Even a core forging cultivator wouldn't be able to bear the consequences with just a few of them. We should be thanking the heavens if we don't cause trouble. Who would dare to provoke us? Besides, Anting is in the Eastern Sea. Even if we encounter danger, we can go to Hearing Waves Island to find Anting. Anting is a mid-Dharma adept. Jingzhi Island also has Uncle Master Tianqin, so it's very safe. Also, I heard that Anting gave birth to a daughter for Father. We have a little sister now. We haven't seen her yet. When the time comes, we can also go to Hearing Waves Island to visit Anting and see our little sister." Lu Qinzhang was convinced by his sister's detailed analysis. After all, he himself wanted to go out and play, but he couldn't find a good excuse. This time, the two of them had found a chance. When Lu Ping returned from the Central Plains, it was just in time for the divine fox to give birth. It was a pair of twins, Lu Qinzhang and Lu Qinyu. Because of Lu Ping, although the two of them were minor repairs' junior, their seniority was extremely high. The outstanding disciples of the fourth generation of Zhenling, such as Wang Tianqi, had already entered the Dharma stage. The fifth generation disciples were also starting to enter the Golden Core stage. The sixth generation disciples, who were similar in age to the two of them, would have to greet them as Master whenever they saw them. It could be said that the two of them had been doted on by almost everyone since they were born. In addition, the two of them had good potential and were diligent in their training. Now, they had already entered the late blood condensation stage. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping was afraid that the two of them would bite off more than they could chew, he would have already started to condense his golden core. After the two of them entered the blood condensation stage, they inherited the same bloodline as Lu Ping. Furthermore, their bloodlines were extremely pure. Lu Ping had already expected this. His bloodline was extremely strong, to a certain extent, almost on par with the bloodline of a true dragon. Furthermore, he was born after achieving the pure yang stage, so his bloodline was naturally strong. However, in terms of the element of the technique, Lu Qinzhang had the wood element of the flood dragon bloodline. This was more like the talent of the divine fox. Lu Qinyu, on the other hand, had the same water element bloodline as Lu Ping. After entering the blood condensation stage, she also trained in the soaring dragon galaxy technique. As for the technique that Lu Qinzhang used, although Zhenling already had several techniques that could directly connect to the true soul level, Lu Ping still specially made a trip to the East Sea for it. He used a portion of the soaring dragon galaxy technique before Lu Ping achieved the true soul level, which was the North Sea wave listening technique that Lu Ping had previously trained in, to exchange for the technique that the Longhui ancestor practiced. The green dragon longevity technique. This was also the cultivation technique of the true soul level. The Longhui ancestor even specially explained the green dragon bloodline to Lu Ping. Little did he know that Lu Ping actually knew much more about this than he did. When Lu Ping arrived at the cave abode, he saw that Lu Dagui had already been waiting there for a long time. Now that Lu Dagui had inherited the Bagui bloodline, his cultivation had climbed all the way to the Dharma stage. "Master, do you need to follow the two young masters when they go out on a trip?" Lu Ping shook his head and pointed at Lu Dagui helplessly. "I already told you that we should address each other as brothers, but you never changed your mind. This master makes me feel uncomfortable." Lu Dagui smiled, but did not change his mind. Lu Ping continued, "Ignore them for now. The two of them have the thin water-flowing sword with them. No one in the North Sea can hurt them." Lu Dagui still said in a low voice, "I'm afraid that the two young masters have gone out of the North Sea." Lu Ping was startled and said, "What are these two little rascals up to?" Lu Dagre said, "These two young masters have heard from mistress that Madame Ying had given birth to a daughter. They wanted to go to the East Sea to see Madame Ying's daughter. After being reprimanded by mistress, the two young masters have been in Master's cave abode to look at the travel records that Master left behind when he was training in the East Sea." Lu Ping laughed and scolded, "These two little rascals, they even dare to lie to me." Lu Dagre said, "Do I need to call the two young masters back?" Lu Ping waved his hand and said, "No need. Since they want to go out alone, it's good. Dagre, you can follow them secretly. Don't save them unless it's a life or death situation. It's good to let them train, lest they are spoiled in the North Sea and don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Chapter 15-14. "Have you figured it out?" Lu Ping asked as soon as he saw Yin Tianchu and Lu Tianyuan. Lu Tianyuan nodded and said, "Yes. That Yuan Feixiang was most likely hiding in Xianling sect. Our spies in Xianling sect even saw Ouyang Weijian at that time." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Xianling sect has long been on our weakening list. Both our sect and Xianling sect are well aware of this. It's just a matter of time. Previously, we didn't have the time to care about it, but now, we have no choice but to remove this hidden danger." Yin Tianchu suddenly asked, "Time?" Yin Tianchu and Xianling sect had a grudge against each other. Over the years, many Xianling sect cultivators had died in his hands, both openly and secretly, especially his two disciples. Back then, in order to train these two disciples, many North Sea cultivators had died in their hands. Under Xianling sect's covert instigation, the entire North Sea cultivation world had almost turned against Xianling sect's disciples. Lu Ping was naturally aware of this. Lu Ping smiled and did not answer Yin Tianchu. Instead, he said, "I won't be involved in this matter. I'm afraid the martial uncles and martial uncles won't interfere either. It's all up to you." Lu Tianyuan obviously did not expect Lu Ping to withdraw. He was stunned and asked, "What's wrong?" Lu Ping smiled helplessly and said, "Something has happened in the Central Plains. The Central Plains cultivation world has found out about what happened at Yingshan Courtyard. Now, Tianxian sect and Wishing School are planning to join forces to force us out of Hebei's cultivation world." Lu Tianyuan frowned and said, "Tianxian sect?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "Even the Crystal Palace didn't manage to extend their influence to the Middle Mainland years ago, but our school did it quietly. Although the Wishing School and the Tianxian sect are fighting against each other, they are surprisingly consistent on the issue of the invasion of the overseas forces." Lu Tianyuan snorted coldly. "If it was in the past, our sect would naturally have to be careful, but now that the Nine Profound Tower is gone, Skyren has already extended his influence into the Middle Earth, completely disregarding the Heavenly Moon sect's reputation. The Yuan clan has been destroyed, and Ziyang Palace, Wishing School, and the Heavenly Profound sect are also fighting over the power gap left by the Yuan clan. In addition to the hidden danger of Mara appearing from time to time, the Middle Earth has completely fallen into chaos. The old structure has long been broken, so how can they still care about the cultivation world of Hebei?" Lu Ping said. "At the very least, they still have to put on an act. Furthermore, I'm afraid that there will be other variables. Following the rise of Zhenling and the fact that the Wishing School and the Tianxian sect were fighting over the power gap left by the Yuan clan, Yingshan Courtyard had also changed its low-profile development and slowly infiltrated into the Hebei cultivation world. Instead, it had begun to expand openly. In reality, the higher-ups of Zhenling, including Lu Ping, knew that once Yingshan Courtyard began to expand, Zhenling would not be able to hide it. Yingshan Courtyard had already reached the limit of its expansion under its slow infiltration mode. Since that was the case, Jinling simply took advantage of the chaos after the destruction of the Yuan clan and began to openly invade the Hebei cultivation world. First, Jiang Tianlin and Tian Xiang Laozi personally went to Yingshan Courtyard to hold the fort. Then, Chu Tianqing Laozi, who had just passed the second lightning tribulation and became a grand cultivator, also rushed to the central plains to hold the fort. In addition, Jinling had placed all of its focus on the central plains. There were a total of more than 10 Dharma adepts among the third-generation disciples and hundreds of core forging disciples who had rushed to the central plains. Jinling had invested almost half of the entire sect's resources. After Chu Tianqing Laozu had recovered from his injuries using the source panacea made from the Samling 5 Elements leaf, perhaps it was due to the strong medicinal effects of the Samling 5 Elements leaf that had helped Laozu not only recover from his injuries, but his cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds in the following 200 years. In the past few years, he had even surpassed Tianshan Laozu and successfully advanced to the late Dharma adepts. Furthermore, from Lu Ping's point of view, the current Tianqing Laozu had even surpassed his teacher Lu Tianling and Mei Tianqin in terms of potential. He was close to Jiang Tianling's. After Jinling started his offensive in the Hebei cultivation world, in the first few years, Jinling was indeed invincible. He had swept through almost half of the Hebei cultivation world. All the sects in the Hebei cultivation world, big and small, either surrendered to him or moved their sects to the south. If there were any who resisted, Jinling did not mind killing them as a warning to others. Until recently, the 3 great cultivators of Tianxian sect, Lian Nan, Qing Li, and Wishing School's pure yang cultivator, Shui Lingzi, all went to the Hebei cultivation world. At the same time, the 2 sects sent a note to Jinling to withdraw from Central Earth in the name of an alliance. Only then did Jinling stop his offensive in the Hebei cultivation world. Both sides faced each other along the banks of Ying River. At this time, news of Tian Shui Laozu's critical illness came from the North Sea. At the same time, the suppression of Xianling sect was about to begin. Chapter 15:15. 7 Fan Laozu has become a true spirit? Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly understood, and said, "No wonder, with this, it is understandable that the Profound Sky sect is so strong, but so what if he has become a true spirit? Could it be that the Profound Sky sect also has a small 1,000 world formed from a spatial spirit treasure? If not, then what is there to be afraid of? In a year, we will have no choice but to go to the northern ice plains, and which true spirit cultivator would dare to go to the northern ice plains now?" After the Battle of Shang Mountain, the Yuan family had become the public enemy of the entire cultivation world, but the northern ice plains had also become the nightmare of all the true spirit cultivators in the cultivation world. Since the beginning of the world, there had been countless seniors who had become true spirits, and no one dared to say that they were better than their seniors. However, from the looks of it, no one could escape from the northern ice plains, so where should these true spirit cultivators go? Was there any other way to leave this world, or was there even a way to directly break through the void of this world and leave? In the past few decades, it wasn't that no one had done this, but even now, they still couldn't find a single clue. All of the true spirit cultivators had secretly sent their disciples to the Eastern Sea to pay a visit to the Longhuai ancestor. Since he was able to detect the conspiracy that had been going on since the beginning of the world, then he was naturally the most likely person to know the solution. However, the Longhuai ancestor's reply to everyone was a 500-year true spirit pact. 500 years! Not every true spirit cultivator could wait 500 years, and not everyone could control a small 1,000 world to avoid the rejection of this world. All of them, including Old Ancestor 7 fans, were only allowed to stay in this world for a year after they attained the true spirit realm, otherwise, they would suffer the wrath of the heavens. He didn't think that he would be able to avoid the wrath of the heavens like Old Ancestor Longhuai had. Although the Longhuai ancestor could withstand the heavenly punishment and escape back to the fallen secret land, he didn't dare to come out of the firmament poison wall anymore. Once he came out, he would face the heavenly punishment lightning tribulation. The Longhuai ancestor could resist it for a while, but he couldn't resist it forever. Therefore, Old Ancestor 7 fans should be on the verge of advancing to the true spirit realm, and he can take that step at any time. However, he doesn't dare to take that step, nor can he. Only by maintaining his current state will he be able to stay in this world for a longer period of time, and only then will he be able to intimidate more people. Once he takes that step, it will only take him a year. But if that's the case, why did he wait 500 years at the edge of advancing to the true spirit realm? Oh no, there are only 400 years left. Tiancheng Laozu obviously did not believe it. That's right. Lu Ping couldn't help but look towards the southeast. The seventh Fan Laozu can't hold on for 500 years. Although he has comprehended the threshold of advancing to the true spirit realm, he has a lifespan of 1,300 to 1,400 years. How can he wait for 400 years? Then where did the Tianxian sect get the courage to fight against us? Do they want to have a moment of pleasure? The current Jinling's foundation might be inferior to the Tianxian sects, but the current Jinling's momentum was not inferior to those Holy Land sects at all. It was even better than the large sects with a long history like the Tianxian sect and the Heavenly Moon sect. The reason was because of the world's #1 pure young North Sea water sword immortal Lu Tianping, the true spirit inheritance, and the many-thousand world. With these three suppressing the sect, in the eyes of the entire cultivation world, as long as the Jinling didn't have an irreconcilable internal conflict, becoming a holy land was just a matter of time. Lu Ping was silent for a while, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he said, "At first, this was also what puzzled this disciple, but when I mentioned the Longhui ancestor, this disciple suddenly thought of the myriad poisoned sky wall." Jiang Tianlin was startled and said, "It can't be. Did the Longhui ancestor agree to let the seventh Fan Laozu go to the fallen secret land after becoming a true spirit?" Tiancheng Laozu said with a smile. "Impossible. Didn't they say that the many-thousand world can only hide one true spirit cultivator?" At this time, Lu Ping said seriously, "It may not be so. Don't forget that the myriad poisoned sky wall is not a many-thousand world. It is a large formation laid by Jiao Daoren. The Longhui ancestor can even avoid the heavenly punishment in it, so it is not impossible to add a true spirit cultivator. You must know that the passage to the outside of this world in the North Ice Field is the foundation of the cultivation world. The Longhui ancestor also wants to break through the barriers of this world and enter the starry sky world to pursue the illusory longevity and freedom, so he made this 500-year agreement with the true spirits in the world. These 500-year agreement are used to accumulate strength, not only to accumulate the strength of the spirit demon clan, but also to accumulate the strength of the true spirit cultivators in this world. A true spirit cultivator like the seventh Fan Laozu, if he can provide help, he will not refuse." If Jinling was really delayed in Central Plains, then Xianling's sect would immediately stab Jinling in the back. On Mystic Spirit Island, Dao Xing Laozu was preaching to the sect's disciples in the Mystic Spirit Temple. Looking at the withered disciples in the temple and the fact that there were barely any talented disciples in the younger generation, Dao Xing Laozu couldn't help but feel disheartened. Over the years, with Jinling's strong revival, the entire North Sea's cultivation world with a little bit of talent was recruited by Jinling. Even Xianling's sect's strictly controlled sphere of influence was secretly infiltrated by Jinling. Some families and forces that were originally affiliated with Xianling's sect secretly sent their outstanding disciples to Jinling. Dao Xing Laozu was well aware of this, but he couldn't do anything about it. Now, Xianling's sect could only choose some of the remaining disciples from Jinling's selection. This situation was not only limited to Xianling's sect, but also in other North Sea sects such as Haiyan sect and Shuyan Pavilion. Their situation was even worse than Jinling's. Dao Xing Laozu's mind was filled with thoughts, but he quickly gathered all his attention. The sect's inheritance had to continue, no matter how difficult it was. He was very clear about his weight in the sect. Once even he began to lose confidence, then Xianling's sect would really collapse. No matter what, he had to ensure that Xianling's sect's inheritance would not be cut off. As long as the inheritance continued, Xianling's sect might have a chance to rise again in the future. Moreover, he had already cultivated a successor for Xianling's sect. Thinking of Ouyang Weijian, Dao Xing Laozu couldn't help but feel gratified. Unfortunately, this child was born at the wrong time. If there was no Lu Tianping in North Sea, then he would definitely be the most dazzling existence in the entire North Sea's cultivation world. Even among the current third-generation disciples, he would be outstanding. Unfortunately, thinking of the news from Middle Mainland, Dao Xing Laozu couldn't help but have another thought. At this time, it seemed that Ouyang Weijian would return to North Sea again. This child would never give up any opportunity to carry forward Xianling sect. Although Dao Xing Laozu knew that Ouyang Weijian had the intention to compete with Lu Tianping, what could he do? Thinking of this, Dao Xing Laozu couldn't help but look forward to it. But at this moment, a haze flashed across Dao Xing Laozu's mind. Could Lu Tianping's trip to Middle Mainland be a trap? A trap to lure Ouyang Weijian back to North Sea and away from the protection of the Crystal Palace? This inexplicable thought turned and expanded in Dao Xing Laozu's mind until Dao Xing Laozu could no longer be in the mood to preach. Looking at the crooked people in the hall, Dao Xing Laozu felt even more annoyed. Just as he was about to wave his hand to end the preaching, his face suddenly turned pale and his palm could no longer wave down. Lin Xiqing Laozu's heart sank when he saw Dao Xing Laozu's behavior. Just as he was about to ask, he heard Dao Xing Laozu sigh and say, "Xiqing, the old man is tired today. Let's stop here. Wait for the old man to preach for a while." Lin Xiqing didn't understand, but he also knew that this was not the time to ask, so he took over Dao Xing Laozu's preaching. However, Dao Xing Laozu disappeared in the mysterious spirit palace in the blink of an eye, causing the disciples in the palace to exclaim. Lin Xiqing frowned and said in a low voice, "Silence! Next, the old man will take over Uncle Master Dao Xing's preaching for the second method of wind sword. Disciples, listen carefully." The void shook and Dao Xing Laozu appeared in the sky above mysterious Spirit Island. Looking at the surrounding void, the hope in Dao Xing Laozu's heart sank bit by bit. Then, he turned to the northwest and stepped on the void step by step. In an instant, he had traveled hundreds of miles. The originally blue void in front of Dao Xing Laozu suddenly bloomed layer by layer. Above a white cloud, a cloud table, a jade cup, a teapot, a tea stove, and the fragrance of tea wafted in the air. "Brother Dao Xing, please sit!" Tian Xiang Laozu didn't get up from the cloud table. Instead, he waved his hand and greeted Dao Xing Laozu from afar. Lu Tianling, who was originally sitting at the side, stood up and greeted as a junior. Dao Xing Laozu didn't say a word. He sat on the jade stool and drank the hot tea in front of him. His face was gloomy, and he said bitterly, "Brother Tian Xiang, are you in such a hurry?" Tian Xiang Laozu also sighed slightly and said, "I have no choice. What would you do if it was Brother Dao Xing?" Dao Xing Laozu finally showed a pained expression. He slowly opened his eyes after a while, and the exhaustion on his face became more and more intense. It was as if he had aged 100 years in an instant. He said bitterly, "That Lu Tianping didn't go to Middle-earth?" Tian Xiang Laozu smiled slightly and said, "Brother Dao Xing, are you talking about your sect's Ouyang Weijian? Little Lu did go to Middle-earth, but this disciple of your sect was also intercepted by a third-generation disciple of my sect." Dao Xing Laozu was stunned, and then said coldly, "Other than Lu Tianping, who else in your sect can be a match for Ouyang Weijian?" After a pause, Dao Xing Laozu still said, "Unless you bully him with numbers and gang up on him." Lu Tianling giggled and said, "Senior should also know that on the vast sea, other than cultivators of the same level, it is very difficult to ambush a grand cultivator in advance." Tian Xiang Laozu didn't argue, but said, "Just wait for a moment, I think there will be news." In the southern part of the North Sea, Ouyang Weijian's face was pale, and his body, which was barely floating in the air, began to wobble. There were more than 10 wounds all over his body, and blood was flowing out. He bent over and coughed repeatedly, and traces of blood splashed out from his mouth. After barely suppressing it, a bitter laugh came from his mouth. Hee, I didn't expect, I always thought that in the whole North Sea, other than Lu Tianping, I didn't expect that under my carelessness, I would be taken advantage of by you." Yin Tianchu's expression was cold, and he turned a deaf ear to the contempt in Ouyang Weijian's words. The Taishian thorn suddenly disappeared in front of him, and Ouyang Weijian, who was dozens of feet away, changed his expression, and panic flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect to be defeated by this person. He really didn't want to accept it. He originally thought that in the whole North Sea, only Lu Tianping was his opponent, but he didn't expect that under the cover of Lu Tianping, there was actually an expert like Yin Tianchu hidden in Jinling. In reality, Yin Tianchu was quite famous in the world of cultivation. However, due to Lu Tianping's brilliance being too dazzling, people had unconsciously overlooked his existence. Coupled with the fact that Yin Tianchu's combat style was mainly based on sneak attacks and assassinations, people naturally looked down on him. If he was strong enough, why would he need to sneak attack and assassinate? It wasn't that Ouyang Weijian didn't know Yin Tianchu's cultivation level, but he never considered Yin Tianchu as his opponent. It wasn't that he was careless, maybe it was because he was biting off more than he could chew. If he had always placed himself in a weak position when compared to Lu Tianping, perhaps he wouldn't be in such a predicament today. Before the boundless darkness gradually annihilated the last of Ouyang Weijian's consciousness, this thought flashed through his mind for the last time. Chapter 15-17. Yin Tianchu's right chest had already been pierced by the flying sword qi. The raging sword qi roamed through his body, causing far more damage than what was originally caused in his right chest. Yin Tianchu still stared at Ouyang Weijian with a cold expression. Only when Ouyang Weijian's life force was gradually fading did Yin Tianchu kneel on one knee and barely support his body with his hands. Only then did he put a pill into his mouth. Then, he circulated his true yuan with all his might to suppress the rampaging sword qi in his body. Above the clouds, Daoxing, Tianxiang, and Lu Tianling were still calmly chatting while sipping tea. It was as if they did not know that a battle that would decide the rise and fall of a sect had just ended in the distant southern sea of the North Sea. It seemed that both sides were quite confident in each other. At this time, somewhere in the Middle Earth, Lu Ping smiled when he saw Lian Nan Laozu opposite him. Senior advancing to the pure yang stage is a good thing. This junior congratulates you. Lian Nan Laozu was startled, then he smiled bitterly and said, Thank you, Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Ping nodded slightly, but his gaze went past Lian Nan Laozu and looked at the void in the distance. Then, he looked at Shui Lingzi thoughtfully and said, Since the two seniors are here, please show yourselves. Lian Nan Laozu and Shui Lingzi looked at each other, because they could see that Lu Ping was obviously not talking to them. Junior brother Lian Nan, you should return to Profound Sky City first. Let the old man and senior 5 elements handle the matters here. The void behind progenitor Lian Nan slowly opened up and progenitor 7 Fan, who hadn't been seen for a long time, looked at Lu Ping with deep fear in his eyes. Even though he was on the verge of entering the true spirit realm, he couldn't hide from Lu Ping at all. Ha ha ha, the North Sea Sword Immortal really lives up to his name. Shui Lingzi suddenly laughed. Although it was a woman's voice, there was a sense of heroism and praise in her voice. It was obviously not Shui Lingzi who was speaking. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with surprise, but he quickly understood. He cupped his hands at Shui Lingzi and said, Greetings, 5 elements Laozu. Qi Laozu sighed slightly and said, Your sect has such a far-reaching plan. This Yingshan courtyard rose from the Yingshan mountain range hundreds of years ago and has long been recognized by the entire North Sea cultivation world. Therefore, its expansion in the Hebei cultivation world has not attracted much attention. I never thought it was the work of your sect. When I realized it was already too late. The smile on Lu Ping's face did not reveal his true thoughts, but he said, It's not too late. Now that the 2 seniors have come, I need to flee. Shui Lingzi, who was possessed by 5 elements Laozu with a secret technique, laughed and said, This Lu Xiaoyu is really interesting. With your strength, unless you are a true spirit cultivator, who in this world can be your opponent? Qi Laozu, who was at the side, also said, Your sect has a far-reaching plan. The places that have already been occupied by your sect in the Hebei cultivation world have already been occupied, so we have nothing to say. However, I hope that you will stop here, lest I find it difficult to deal with when the time comes." Five Elements Lao Tzu laughed and said, "What Chi Fan said is exactly what the old man wants." Lu Ping's expression was calm, and his expression was non-committal. However, his eyes were constantly flickering, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he said, "The area around the Shang Mountain is thousands of miles wide. The conspiracy of the Yuan family has failed, and now it has become an ownerless land. Various forces are fighting over it, but the two seniors still have the mood to discuss a barren land like the Hebei cultivation world with me." Five Elements Lao Tzu, on the other hand, sneered, "You are, after all, a person from overseas. If you take an inch and take a mile, I'm afraid that the sects in the central mainland will unite against you." The smile on Lu Ping's face instantly disappeared, and he said coldly, "Are you threatening me, senior?" Shui Lingzi's expression was stunned, and Five Elements Lao Tzu's voice sounded, "It's not a threat, it's the truth." Seven Elements Lao Tzu on the side sighed and said, "Please consider it carefully, young friend." Lu Ping's expression became even colder, but in the end, he still nodded and said, "Since we can't go south, then our sect should go west. The Huta sect in the northwest has a deep grudge against our sect, and we have to take revenge." Seven Elements Lao Tzu and Five Elements Lao Tzu looked at each other, and they could see the doubt in each other's eyes. In the end, it was Lao Tzu who asked, "Young friend, have you never thought of offending Ziyang Palace?" Lu Ping said with a cold face, "I know what I'm doing, and I don't need the two of you to give me advice. You just need to promise me that you won't interfere with our sect's actions." Five Elements Lao Tzu pondered for a moment, and nodded. "Right now, Huta sect is barely maintaining its reputation as a large sect. As long as your sect doesn't go south of the Yulun River and east of the Ying River, then we won't interfere with your sect's actions." Lu Ping's gaze turned to Seven Elements Lao Tzu, and he also nodded. "Then it's settled." But Lu Ping suddenly said, "Wait." Seven Elements Lao Tzu narrowed his eyes, and Five Elements Lao Tzu, who was on the side, said unhappily, "Young friend, are you going back on your word?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "I just want to ask, how is the situation in the Shang Mountain?" Seven Elements snorted coldly and said, "Your sect has so many plans in the Central Plains, don't you know the situation there?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "I wasn't so sure at first, but after seeing the two of you today, I believe most of it." Five Elements Lao Tzu's words came through the sharp voice of Shui Lingzi. "Young man, what do you want?" Lu Ping said with a straight face, "I want a share of the giant spiritual stone mine in the Shang Mountain." "Dream on!" The five-element great ancestors said angrily without even thinking. "The sects of the Middle Mainland are fighting for that spiritual stone vein. If you, a sect from overseas, participate, you will definitely be resisted by the sects of the Middle Mainland. It's even possible that my five-element sect and the Heavenly Mystery sect will be dragged into this." Lu Ping smiled and said, "In the cultivation world, there is no such thing as a single sect monopolizing the giant spiritual stone mine. Back then, the Yuan family only occupied 40% of the mine due to the geographical advantage. Now that the sects in the Central Plains are fighting for the power vacuum left by the Yuan family in the Shang Mountain, this 40% share of the spiritual stone mine is of utmost importance. If the two of you don't agree, I will seek help from Ziyang Palace. My sect only wants a small piece of the pie, and I believe that Ziyang Palace will welcome our help very much." Seven Elements Lao Tzu interrupted Lu Ping, and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, Xunling is an overseas sect after all. Ziyang Palace doesn't necessarily want to provoke public anger." Lu Ping's two rows of teeth shone coldly under the rising sun as he smiled, and he said, "Who said that my sect wants to participate? It is obviously Yingshan Side Hall, the newly rising large sect in the cultivation world of Hebei, that wants to participate." Ziyang Palace and Wishing School were respected sacred grounds, while Tianxian sect and Flowing Cloud Pavilion were large, established sects with pure yang cultivators. Regardless of whether these four sects supported or did not object, Zhenling's share of the giant spirit stone mine in Mount Shan was already set in stone. However, Lu Ping also knew that the share of the mine would definitely be extremely small. However, he did not care. What Lu Ping needed was an opportunity to completely push Zhenling's forces into the cultivation world of Middle-earth and gain recognition. As long as this opportunity was opened, with the growth of Zhenling's strength, there might be a chance to continue to expand the share in the future. More importantly, this represented the recognition and acceptance of Zhenling by the cultivation world of Middle-earth. In the future, Zhenling would naturally have a justifiable reason to intervene in the affairs of Middle-earth. Lu Ping knew that this opportunity was no different from an alliance between Wuxing School and Tianxian sect. It was Zhenling's opportunity to loot a burning house when Wuxing School and Tianxian sect joined hands to fight for the territory of the Yuan clan. It was Flowing Cloud Pavilion's opportunism and Xiang Palace's return of a favor. Although Lu Ping knew that once the matter of Mount Shan was over, these sects would most likely turn around and deal with Zhenling. It was even possible for them to join hands and expel Zhenling back to the North Sea. But Lu Ping didn't care, because he was confident that he could create a Zhenling sect that would strike fear into the hearts of the entire cultivation world before the sects in the Middle-earth could unite. This was just a game between the two sections. The one who could grow into a formidable realm before the other would be the winner. Lu Ping was confident, but he did not know where Tianxian sect's confidence came from. Although Qifan Laozu was only one step away from becoming a true spirit realm, and he did not dare take this step, Lu Ping knew that Qifan Laozu could not maintain this state for long. Once Qifan Laozu reached the true spirit realm, the Tianxian sect would not have the protection of a small world. Then Qifan Laozu would only have 1 year left in this world. After 1 year, he would have to go to the northern ice plains, otherwise he would still die under the heavenly punishment. But after the destruction of the Yuan clan, which true spirit cultivator in the cultivation world would dare to rashly go to the northern ice plains? The old man will go to the East Sea soon. Lu Ping suddenly realized that Qifan Laozu was obviously seeking protection from the Longhuai ancestor. In the cultivation world, if there was a sect with a small world that dared to protect the true spirit cultivators of other sects, it would probably be the Longhuai ancestor. No wonder the Tianxian sect dared to destroy the Taixian sect at this time. Not only did the Wuxing School not stop them, but the two sects even joined forces to compete with the Xiang Palace. With the sky wall of poison, Qifan Laozu could at least protect the Tianxian sect for more than 300 years. After 300 years, once everyone joined forces to open the passage from the northern ice plains to the outside world, Qifan Laozu might have time to protect the Tianxian sect for a longer time. Qifan Laozu was obviously gambling. If he was right, he might be able to establish another sect with the inheritance of a holy land. If the passage to the northern ice plains was not opened, or if he died in the process, then even if the Tianxian sect did not suffer a disaster, it was afraid that it would quickly decline. However, this was only Qifan Laozu's wishful thinking. How could he know that the true spirit inheritance from the 9 Profound Tower was only suitable for him? In the end, Skyrend expanded his power from the East Sea to the Central Plains. For this reason, a large sect in the south of the Tianxian sect was defeated by Skyrend. Full Moon Laozu, who was still in hiding, did not show himself. Naturally, the Tianxian sect could not stop Skyrend from entering the Central Plains. And with the addition of Skyrend, the competition for the 9 Profound Towers' sphere of influence became even more intense. In the entire area around the middle and lower reaches of the Qingming River, conflicts and battles between various sects could be said to be endless. It was almost like a pot of porridge. And at this time, Skyrend suddenly suffered a great loss near the 9 Profound Mountain. 4 Dharma adepts had fallen, and only Skyrend's first third-generation direct disciple, Liang Jianfei, had been seriously injured and escaped. The third-generation direct disciple of the 9 Profound Tower had appeared. That year, after the 9 Profound Tower had been ambushed and destroyed by the 10 Pure Yang Masters, no one had seen the third-generation direct disciple of the 9 Profound Tower. If he was alive, no one had seen him, and if he was dead, no one had found his corpse. Now, he had suddenly appeared and caused Skyren to suffer a great loss. The head of the first origin house, Weijin, the head of the 3 talents house, the head of the 5 elements house, the head of the 6 harmonies house, and so on. There were only 4 left of the 9 great house masters of the past, but these 4 were all late Dharma adepts. Although they were far from being comparable to the 9 profound tower when it was at its peak, when these 5 late Dharma adepts joined forces, it was enough to cause a bloodbath in the entire middle and lower reaches of the Qingming River. And the appearance of these 4 people caused the entire middle and lower reaches of the Qingming River to fall into a strange silence. After receiving the news from Green Fox, Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. This was because he had seen Sun Liuhe when he had accompanied Xiao Baiyu and the others to kill their way into the 9 profound tower, as well as when he had used the space essence to kill his way into the 9 profound tower's training ground that was hidden in the crack in space. If he had not intentionally shown mercy, Sun Liuhe would probably have died. Now that Sun Liuhe had appeared in the old grounds of the 9 profound tower, it naturally meant that the training ground of the 9 profound tower had returned. And there was also Yanlan Laozu, who had already received the Immortal's legacy more than 100 years ago and was only 1 step away from becoming an immortal. After 100 years, the remaining members of the 9 profound tower had returned to the world of cultivation. Then where was Yanlan Laozu? Chapter 15-19. If the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower had appeared in the world of cultivation, then where had Yanlan Laozu gone? However, after a few days, news once again came from the south of the Central Plains. Yanlan Laozu had slaughtered 6 people from the Tianhua sect, including 5 Dharma adepts. The Tianhua sect had suffered a great loss, but Full Moon Laozu had not appeared. It seemed as if he had really gone into hiding. And after Yanlan Laozu had killed 5 Dharma adepts from the Tianhua sect, he seemed to have some reservations and did not attack again. Soon after, the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower, led by a few late Dharma adepts, headed west. They had resolutely abandoned the base that had originally belonged to the 9 Xian Tower. In reality, after the news of the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower's appearance had spread, the various sects that had been fighting for territory in the middle and lower reaches of the Qingming River had already formed an alliance to kill the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower. The decision of the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower caught the various sects unprepared. Once the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower escaped their encirclement, it would be difficult to catch up with them again. Although the various sects could continue to divide up the territory of the 9 Xian Tower, they had to be careful of the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower's revenge in the future. After hearing the news from the Tianhua sect, Lu Ping handed over the matters of the sect and the North Sea cultivation world to Jiang Tianlin. Then, he swaggered towards the northern ice plains alone. Amidst the snowstorm, Lu Ping looked at the white-haired elder who had been waiting for him for a long time and said, "Senior, how long have you been waiting here?" Yanlan Laozu's expression was calm, but Lu Ping could sense the murderous intent in his eyes. "Not long, I just arrived." Lu Ping grunted and nodded to indicate that he knew, but he asked, "After you failed to find Full Moon Laozu, you should have come to find me. If I am not wrong, you should have gone to find Xiao Baiyu or 7 Fan Laozu." Yanlan Laozu coldly snorted, but did not deny it. He only heard Lu Ping continue. "When Xiao Baiyu became a true spirit cultivator, you cannot afford to offend him. You also have to think about the remnants of the 9 Xian Tower in the future. Similarly, when you face 7 Fan Laozu, who can take the last step to become a true spirit cultivator, you must have the same thought. In addition, Lin Yu, Gu Yu, Shihua, San Qin and the others are all dead and scattered. Yuan Pokong and Yang Shouchang cannot afford to offend you. No matter how you think about it, it seems that you can only find me, who has not become a true spirit cultivator yet, and the sect behind me cannot be considered a threat." Lu Ping had a faint smile on his face. He was not the slightest bit nervous because he was facing a true spirit cultivator. He said indifferently, "So you want to find me to vent your anger or take revenge?" Yan Lan Laozi laughed involuntarily and said, "What's the difference?" Lu Ping declined to comment and said, "It seems that Senior has been in seclusion for more than 100 years, but you are not aware of the changes that have happened in the cultivation world over the years. Otherwise, Senior would not be so eager to take revenge." Yan Lan Laozi restrained the smile on his face and said with a sad smile, "Stop talking nonsense. The old man is naturally aware of the changes in the cultivation world over the years. If the Nine Xian Tower was still one of the 6 great holy lands, the old man might have to agree to the agreement after more than 300 years, and then act as if the overall situation is the most important. However, now that the Nine Xian Tower has been beaten into the dust, and without the protection of the spirit space, the old man only has 1 year left. Anyway, he is going to die, so what does the old man have to worry about?" Seeing that Yan Lan Laozi was about to make a move, Lu Ping's figure flashed, and he was already in the void. He said loudly, "Your Excellency is planning to pinch the soft persimmon." Yan Lan Laozi shook his arms, and the surrounding void began to tremble like a wave in Lu Ping's perception. Lu Ping, who had fallen into the void and was ready to escape at any time, was suddenly shaken out. "So what? You hid in the northern ice plains, just like the full moon, to make the old man hesitate to attack. Unfortunately, you didn't escape fast enough, and the old man caught up to you." There was a trace of pride in Yan Lan Laozi's tone, but his expression was distorted to the point of being ferocious. Just like what Lu Ping had said before, in his hands, the 9 profound towers' spirit space was snatched away, and the 7-feathered fan had also become someone else's possession. It could be said that the 9 profound tower, as a dignified holy land, had completely declined in his hands. However, after Yan Lan Laozi came out after enduring hardships for more than 100 years, he found that even though he had become a spirit cultivator, he was still facing an unsolvable situation. There were restraints everywhere, and fear everywhere. Even the remaining forces of the 9 profound tower had to face the joint suppression of the sects that had divided up the 9 profound tower's original sphere of influence and resources. Naturally, their goal was to completely eliminate the hidden danger of the 9 profound tower. Yan Lan Laozi could be said to be extremely disappointed and resentful. Even the secret that was exposed after the destruction of the Yuan family caused Yan Lan Laozi's last trace of comfort to turn into nothingness. He was disheartened by the hope of immortality, and all that was left was a belly full of vengeance. In a situation where Xiao Baiyu had become a spirit cultivator, Full Moon was indifferent to the death of his own disciples, and Qi Fan could advance to a spirit cultivator at any time and had found a powerful backer. Yan Lan Laozi's rage could only erupt towards Lu Ping. The sword of true spirit, Amoli, stabbed in all directions. 8 purplish gold sword Qi turned into 8 dragons that danced in all directions. They were like 8 steel nails that were nailed in different directions. In an instant they suppressed the trembling space around them. But just as Lu Ping fixed the void with his sword, he saw that the wind and the blizzard had already rushed towards Lu Ping. He did not doubt that these cold snowstorms could blow his body into pieces. This time, Senior guessed wrong. The reason why this junior came to the North Ice Field was not to hide, but to deliberately lead Senior here. The brilliance in Lu Ping's eyes made him easily see through the misty snowstorm and Yan Lan Laozi, who was holding a cyan feather fan. The green feather fan was naturally a spirit treasure, but what caught Lu Ping's attention was the material of the fan. The green feather was very familiar to Lu Ping. He had a feather in his hand that was made from the Peacock royal clan's origin feather, the peacock feather. It was a feather of a different color, but it was made from the same material. It was the peacock feather he obtained many years ago. Lu Ping's left hand moved forward, and a curtain of rain suddenly appeared in front of him. The strong wind blew the curtain of rain in front of Lu Ping into a strange shape, but it never broke. The flying sharp white snow was completely integrated into the curtain of rain the moment it touched the curtain of rain. Boasting shamelessly, Lu Ping successively resolved Yan Lan Laozi's offensive in an understatement, which made him look at Lu Ping with more and more dignified eyes. However, he never put Lu Ping in his heart. The battle between the two top figures in this side of the world, although it seemed to be understated without the slightest smoke and fire, the danger in it was not known to outsiders. If there was a slight turbulence in the battle between the two, then the snowfield within 100 miles would not suffer. In the distance, the snow-capped mountains were exposed in the continuous avalanche, and the snow-capped mountains were exposed. The snowfield was collapsing, and everywhere, the snow was rolled up by the wind and flew in the air to block the line of sight. There was chaos between heaven and earth. Lu Ping was defending, and Yang Lan Laozu seemed to have the upper hand. Although Lu Ping fell into a disadvantageous position, Lu Ping's tone was still calm and indifferent. It seemed that he was not too fast or too slow. You and I are in a great battle. When we move, thousands of miles will be affected. This younger generation junior does not want to fight with the predecessor in Beihai and Hebei's cultivation world. I simply came to this ice field to wait for the arrival of the predecessor. I don't need to worry about it. I will simply fight with the predecessor. Yan Lan Laozu's expression became more and more ferocious. When he heard what Lu Ping said, he just gritted his teeth and said a few words from his mouth. Just by yourself, do you deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as the old man? You can't do anything to me. Lu Ping's smile seemed a little playful. He said, "It seems that the predecessor is still unfamiliar with the matters of the cultivation world after all. You may not know that the Yuan family once lost the lives of two pure yang in Beihai before it was destroyed." Chapter 1520. Lu Ping had Luan Daoist's life feather as his trump card, so he naturally wasn't worried that his battle with Yang Lan and Laozu would be in danger. However, Lu Ping obviously didn't want to reveal the feather on his body at this time. He wanted to see how big the gap was between him and a true spirit cultivator. Luan Daoist's life feather contained the heaven-splitting technique that Luan Daoist had personally sealed in it. It could only be used as a life-saving trump card for Lu Ping and Jinling. It couldn't be considered as Lu Ping's own ability. In the vast snowfield, the two strongest great presences of this world were engaged in a life-and-death battle. The void trembled, the glaciers crumbled, and the snowfield exploded. Strong winds swept up the snowstorm, forming a massive cold storm that spread southward for thousands of miles into Hebei's cultivation world. Although Lu Ping was worried that the battle between the two great presences would affect Jinling's sect's newly established territory, he still couldn't completely avoid it in the end. Although Lu Ping came to the North Ice Field because he was worried that the battle between the two great presences would affect Jinling's sect's newly established territory, he still couldn't avoid it completely. The cold wave passed, heavy snow flew, and the north wind howled. Although Lu Ping originally wanted to avoid the destruction caused by the battle between the two, the weather caused by the battle still affected most of the cultivation world of Hebei. Fortunately, Lu Ping was far enough into the northern ice plains, so it was just a few more snowfalls here. However, just as the cultivators from Jinling's sect who had stayed behind in Hebei province were deeply worried, a vast warm current suddenly flowed south from the cold northern ice plains. In an instant, the snowy weather began to turn as warm as spring. The 3 feet of snow on the ground began to melt rapidly, forming tiny streams of water from the mountains, forests, plains, and valleys. The water flowed from all directions into the Ying River, causing the water volume of the Ying River to increase dramatically, forming a huge flood that rushed from the north to the south. By the time it entered the Ying Jade Swamp, the entire area within a radius of 100 miles from the middle and lower reaches of the Ying River had been turned into a swamp. Martial Nephew Lu used Luan Daoist's life feather. Feeling the warm wind from the north to the south, Jiang Tianlin's face was full of worry. Sealed in the feather is the genuine heaven-splitting divine ability. It's the most important treasure of our sect to stabilize the destiny of our sect. Since we've used it, that brat should be able to get out of danger. Laozu's mood at this time was not necessarily better than Jiang Tianlin's. There was obviously more uncertainty in his tone. Even if Lu Ping was invincible, he was still Laozu who had achieved true spirit. Was he really as confident as he showed before he left? After the sudden surge of warm air from the frigid northern ice plains, the spiritual chi turbulence that had shaken the entire cultivation world in Hebei abruptly calmed down, indicating that the earth-shattering battle in the northern ice plains had come to an end. Jiang Tianlin and Laozu were both anxious. Lu Ping could be considered as Jinling's true stabilizing force. If something really happened to Lu Ping, Jinling would not only have to withdraw all of its forces from the central plains, but it was also uncertain whether it could even protect the northern seas. No, the old man wants to go to the northern ice plains to find out what is going on. The battle between Lu Ping and Laozu lasted for 2 days, and there was still no news from the northern ice plains. Jinling's forces in the cultivation world of Hebei had begun to shrink secretly. Now that a warm current suddenly swept from the depths of the northern ice plains, the two suddenly thought of the heaven-splitting technique sealed in Wan Daoist's life feather. Thinking of the day when celestial phenomenon Laozu opened the seal of the feather and killed the 2 pure young masters of the Yuan family in one fell swoop, Tianqing Laozu finally could no longer hold back and insisted on going to the northern ice plains to find traces of Lu Ping. "We can't go at this time." Jiang Tianlin refused his plan without thinking. "Are we just going to wait like this and watch Marshal Nephew Lu fight to the death in the North Ice Field while we can do nothing about it?" Ancestor Tianqing's eyes were like 2 balls of fire, as if they would burst out at any time. "What can you do if you go?" Jiang Tianlin was obviously under great pressure at this time, but he still tried to maintain his rationality. He said, "With our strength, we can't help Nephew Lu no matter whether we win or lose if we go to the northern ice plains. It's better to stay in the cultivation world of Hebei. Nephew Lu and Yanlan have been fighting in the northern ice plains for 2 days, which has already exceeded everyone's expectations. However, there are still many people who believe that Nephew Lu will lose. Now, there are many people outside the cultivation world of Hebei who are eyeing our sect covetously. If junior brother leaves, I'm afraid I can't suppress them alone." Jiang Tianlin paused for a moment before he said, "Let's take a step back. Even if something happens to Marshal Nephew Lu, without junior brother's help, how many juniors can I protect and leave Middle-earth by myself?" Tianqing Laozu took a few deep breaths and said in a muffled voice, "Old man is really bored to death. Old man, let's go out and take a walk." However, before Tianqing Laozu walked to the entrance of the cave residence, a loud sound suddenly came from the depths of the northern ice plains. When it reached the cultivation world of Hebei, there was only a dull sound left. Jiang Tianlin and Tianqing Laozu were shocked, but they didn't know what this sound meant. However, after a while, another loud sound came from the depths of the northern ice plains, but compared to the previous sound, it seemed to be a little more dull and distant. After that there was a third sound, a fourth sound. Each sound was deeper and farther away than the previous one, as if an ancient giant was stepping on the earth and going far away. The two looked at each other. After a while, Tianqing Laozu asked with some uncertainty, "Thunder?" Jiang Tianlin looked puzzled. He slowly shook his head and said, "How can there be such a powerful thunder magic?" Tianqing Laozu's eyes lit up, and he said, "Is it thunder punishment? No, could it be heaven's punishment?" Although Jiang Tianlin and Tianqing Grand Ancestor didn't participate in the battle where Patriarch Long Huai of Shang Mountain defeated the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash, Jiang Tianlin and Tianqing Grand Ancestor were still talking about Patriarch Long Huai's feat of breaking the number 1 divine artifact of Shang Mountain and escaping all the way back to East Sea despite the heavenly punishment. Naturally, they had heard about it from Lu Ping. If it was heaven's punishment, what was the result of this battle? Did Lu Ping escape from the hands of Yanlan Laozu, or did he fail in the end? Could Yanlan Laozu escape into the large formation leading to the outside world in the northern ice plains before heaven's punishment destroyed him? On the northern ice plains, to be able to fight with Yanlan Laozu, who had just become a true spirit cultivator, for 2 days, not to mention that Yanlan Laozu's face was filled with more and more horror, even Lu Ping himself never thought that he could reach this point. In fact, when Lu Ping tenaciously resisted Yanlan Laozu for a whole day, the horror on Yanlan Laozu's face had been replaced by a ruthless killing intent. Lu Tianping could not be left alive. Not only Yanlan Laozu, but any cultivator who had a grudge against Zhenling or Lu Ping himself, at this time, the mood to kill Lu Ping would be more urgent than Yanlan Laozu. An existence that could resist a true spirit cultivator with pure yang power, if such a monster was not eliminated, the future troubles would be endless. In fact, on this day, Lu Ping's resistance, except for Luan Daoist's life source feather, had already exhausted all his strength. The two pure yang spiritual treasures in his hands, the sword of true spirit Emoli and the scissors, were used by Lu Ping desperately. The life source gentian formation had been forcibly broken by Yanlan Laozu twice. All kinds of magical sword techniques and secret techniques could not do anything to the existence of the true spirit level. Lu Ping even did not hesitate to use the sea mulberry field's secret art to change the climate within hundreds of miles of the northern ice plains. After the huge sky and Yanlan Laozu's confrontation, the cold wave formed all the way to the south swept through most of the Hebei cultivation world. Lu Ping almost exhausted all his means, but he only resisted Yanlan Laozu for a day. Just when Lu Ping felt that he had to sacrifice the last trump card of Luan Daoist's colorful feather, Lu Ping suddenly discovered that the true spirit Laozu in front of him seemed to have no other means to kill him. Looking at the second tribulation spiritual treasure in the hands of Yanlan Laozu, Lu Ping seemed to see Yanlan Laozu's predicament. The existence of the true spirit Laozu did not have a convenient spiritual treasure in his hands. In addition, although the battle between Lu Ping and Yanlan Laozu fell into a disadvantageous position, Yanlan Laozu himself could not break Lu Ping's defense and completely transform his advantage into victory. Therefore, Yanlan Laozu had to choose a way that was similar to humiliation in the eyes of a true spirit cultivator to deal with the evildoer in front of him. That was to drag it out. Yanlan Laozu seemed to have to use this way to compete with Lu Ping to determine the outcome of the battle. Yanlan Laozu, who had become a true spirit, was sure that Lu Ping was not his opponent. In fact, he was right. No matter how much Lu Ping's true yuan was accumulated, it couldn't be heaven-defying enough to compete with a true spirit cultivator. At least, a true spirit cultivator had reached the limit of this world. They could easily absorb the world's purest spiritual energy to replenish themselves, allowing them to maintain a never-ending cycle of true yuan in this world. But even so, Lu Ping still persisted for a whole day under the suppression of Yanlan Laozu before he gradually began to face the dilemma of the depletion of true essence in his body. Just when Yanlan Laozu believed that victory was in his grasp, Lu Ping raised a feather in his hand, and the colorful light instantly filled Yanlan Laozu's eyes. Chapter 1521. Yanlan Laozu was not willing. If the seven-feather fan was still in his hands, how could he fall into such a predicament? A pure yang could actually force him into such a situation. This was the heaven-opening divine art, the real heaven-opening divine art, the heaven-opening divine art that the seventh patriarch had sealed himself. Yanlan Laozu roared loudly. He naturally knew that Zhenling had killed two pure yang cultivators of the Yuan family in one fell swoop in the North Sea, but he was a true spirit cultivator after all, and he thought that he could cope with it. However, he forgot that the seven-colored feather in Lu Ping's hands was the same as the six heaven-opening divine weapons. The power they could exert was related to the holder. How could celestial phenomenon Laozu's cultivation strength be compared with Lu Ping's? Therefore, the power of the heaven-opening divine art sealed in the feather triggered by Lu Ping was more than doubled compared to celestial phenomenon Laozu. Although Yanlan Laozu, who had lost the seven-feather fan, had become a true spirit cultivator, he was 3 levels weaker than the previous true spirit cultivators of the 9 profound tower, Laozu. Yanlan Laozu, who had lost the seven-feather fan, could only try his best to protect himself in the face of this mighty power, but he had forgotten that the most taboo for a true spirit cultivator was to unscrupulously use the power of the true spirit to attract the rejection of this world. Under Yanlan Laozu's full strength, he was still barely able to block the unparalleled power contained in the feather. However, he was also beaten by the heaven-opening divine art sealed in the feather, and half of his body was almost burnt. After the fierce heaven-opening divine art was dispersed by Yanlan Laozu, it turned into a warm current that spread in all directions of the ice field. The ice and snow within hundreds of miles of the ice field melted, and as one of the warm currents went further south, the ground became more and more muddy until it formed a huge swamp. At this moment, the oppressive pressure of heaven and earth suddenly came. Lu Ping looked aghast, but Yanlan Laozu on the opposite side could no longer care about the enemy in front of him. He shouted and flew towards the depths of the north ice field. The thunder exploded on the top of his head. Without waiting for the thunder to fade away, the lightning had already fallen to the top of Lu Ping and Yanlan Laozu in the distance. Heavenly punishment, this was definitely heavenly punishment. The moment Lu Ping saw the lightning, he knew that it was a punishment from the heavens. But why did this heavenly punishment fall on his head? Lu Ping was terrified. If this was the case, he only had a dead end. At least Yanlan and Laozu were deep in the north ice field at this time. They were very close to the passage of the north ice field. There was still a possibility that they could escape into the passage to the outside world. Although that place looked like a land of death to everyone, if they did not avoid the heavenly punishment, they would be turned to ashes by the lightning. However, if Yanlan and Laozu could escape, where could Lu Ping escape to? He was just a pure yang cultivator. Lu Ping knew that the problem must lie in the sky-opening magical ability that was sealed in the seven-colored feather that was activated before, but at this time, he could not avoid it. He could only resist it with all his strength. Fortunately, this heaven's punishment was obviously just a bunch separated from the heaven's punishment thunder light that was aimed at Yanlan. It seemed more like a kind of backlash. Although Lu Ping himself was not a true spirit cultivator, the power released by the seven-colored feather that was activated by his cultivation base was much more than the power of a true spirit cultivator. Otherwise, Yanlan and Laozu would not go all out to attract the heavenly punishment. Lu Ping knew that this kind of backlash could not be avoided. From the beginning, he never thought about avoiding it. He simply seized this moment to burst out his potential. The seven-colored feather floating in front of Lu Ping turned into a strange flame under the backlash of the heavenly punishment, burning the feather itself into a cloud of flying ash. This seven-colored feather was the life source feather of Wan Daoist's true spirit body. Its material itself was no less than a good spiritual treasure. Under the power of the heavenly punishment, it turned into flying ash so easily. Lu Ping was shocked in his heart, followed by joy. Although the power of the heavenly punishment destroyed a feather, its own power was obviously weakened. However, despite this, the spiritual treasure was cut in two. It seemed to cut the remaining power of the heavenly punishment into two, but unexpectedly, Lu Ping's hands were numb, and he could no longer control the spiritual treasure. The spiritual treasure broke away from Lu Ping's hands and flew backward. It even cut a foot-long wound on Lu Ping's shoulder, and blood dyed half of his body red. Lu Ping did not have time to check his own injuries. The true spirit sword had already triggered a 99-meter-long sword chi to collide with the remaining power of the heavenly punishment. Lu Ping felt a sudden shock in his core space. At this moment, Lu Ping felt as if his heart had suddenly stopped beating completely. The true spirit sword was sent flying and crashed into the snowy mountain behind him. It created a 100-meter-long hole in the mountain, and a vertical ray of sunlight pierced through the mountain from the other side. The Dharma form of the dragon in the core space finally felt the danger and rose from the suspended sea. The entire suspended sea was moved by the Dharma form of the dragon, and the huge amount of light holy water that was brought into the air began to fall, forming a boundless tsunami that roared in all directions. The entire suspended sea shook, and then the entire core space was shaken. This violent tremor finally caused Lu Ping's heart to beat again. Dong! 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 This first beat was obviously different from the rest. It was like a war drum with a distant intent. Only after that did Lu Ping's heart truly return to normal. The Dharma form of the dragon surged back into the suspended sea and injected a vigorous stream of true essence into Lu Ping's already exhausted true essence. Although such a rapid reversal of true essence would slightly harm Lu Ping's foundation, in this life and death situation, Lu Ping did not care about such things. The natal gentian formation was activated the moment the true essence was replenished. The 9th grade white jade lotus and the 12 gentian pearls formed a sturdy formation after the true spirit sword was sent flying, protecting Lu Ping's body. Rumble! Even with the natal gentian formation's protection, Lu Ping's floating body felt as if it was hit by a heavy hammer. His chest and abdomen flew backwards, but his limbs hung in the opposite direction. A blinding bolt of lightning instantly made a dent in the gentian formation that was facing the divine punishment. However, it was still unable to break through the gentian formation's defense. After the divine punishment passed through the gentian formation, although it looked like it was beating Lu Ping up, it did not really hurt Lu Ping's body. Ever since he entered the blood condensation realm, he had been trying to train his body. Finally, it showed its power at this moment. However, even though Lu Ping had been trying his best to resist the divine punishment's backlash, there was still another 7-colored feather floating above his head. Even at his most critical moment, Lu Ping still retained a trace of the true essence he used to open the seal on this feather. Resisting the divine punishment's backlash caused Lu Ping to be severely injured again. However, this time, he still managed to escape from Yanlan and Lao's pursuit. Moreover, he even managed to trigger the divine punishment from Yanlan and Lao's scheme. Even if he escaped into the passageway formation, he would most likely die. Lu Ping lay on the snowy ground and finally managed to catch his breath. The feather on his head was still shining with a 7-colored luster. Lu Ping suddenly raised his head and chuckled. Then, he pressed his face into the snow again and wiped away all the blood on his face. Only then did he stand up and wave the feather on his head at the snowstorm in the west. Then, he flew towards the south in a shaky manner. Not long after Lu Ping left, the space in the direction where Lu Ping waved his hand suddenly fluctuated. An old ape with a head full of white hair and beard slowly walked out of the snowstorm with a wooden staff that was almost twice his height. Behind him were 2 pure young spiritual great apes. They were the former General Yuan Pokong and the latter General, Yuan Poyu. At this moment, the 2 pure young great apes were extremely respectful towards the short and hunchbacked old ape in front of them. He's not simple. He's fighting against a true spirit as a pure young, yet he still has the time to realize that we're spying on him. He's been guarding against us since the beginning. The old ape had a look of admiration on his face as he praised him. He's just taking advantage of the fact that a true spirit cultivator has scruples and can't unleash his full cultivation base in this world. Uncle, why are you praising this kid to the skies? Yuan Pokong was obviously unconvinced. Humph! The old ape slammed his walking stick hard on the ground. The cracks in the ice on the ground spread out in all directions like a spider web with him as the center. It was as if an earthquake had suddenly happened within a few miles. If the old man were to fight you now, can you resist the old man for a day? I'm afraid you won't even be able to resist him for an hour. Yuan Pokong smiled embarrassedly and said, That young Lon has only just become a true spirit. How can he compare to Uncle? Yuan Poyu, who was at the side, sneered. Fifth brother has also become a pure yang hundreds of years earlier than Lu Tianping. Yuan Pokong turned his head fiercely and shouted at Yuan Poyu. Nobody will think that you're a mute if you don't speak. As soon as he finished speaking, the old ape slapped the back of Yuan Pokong's head. Stop fooling around. After enjoying a great battle, you might as well pay more attention to the cultivation world in Hebei. After all, this Xinling might have to cross paths with our clan in the future, so we must be wary of him no matter if he's a friend or foe. I'm afraid this incarnation won't be able to last much longer. You two can handle the rest as you see fit. It's better for me to return to the ice mountain as soon as possible. I don't know if I can last for another 300 years or so. I'll enter the formation that leads to the outer world with these people and take a look at what exactly the seventh patriarch, whom we worship as a god, has left for the living beings in this world. Chapter 1522. After noticing that someone was spying on him, Lu Ping did not dare to put away the other colorful feather suspended above his head. Instead, he always maintained the last breath of qi, so that the sky-splitting divine art sealed in this feather was always in a state where it could be opened at any time. After recalling the Sword of True Spirit, Emoli, and the two pure yang spiritual treasures, which were shaken away by the sky punishment, Lu Ping flew all the way to the south without looking back. Just after reaching the border between the northern ice field and the Hebei cultivation world, Lu Ping breathed a long sigh of relief. The feeling of uneasiness on his back had finally disappeared completely. The one who was spying on him before was definitely a true spirit cultivator who was not weaker than Yanlan Laozu. At least, it should be the incarnation of a true spirit, and there were at least two pure yang spiritual treasures hidden beside him, which meant that the other party should be from an extremely tyrannical force. If it weren't for Lu Ping's reversal of the pure yang Dharma form and the reversal of the bloodline true essence, which made the dragon Dharma form aware of the existence of the peeper, Lu Ping would not have taken the risk of not releasing the dragon Dharma form after sacrificing the Genshin formation. Otherwise, it would have been easier for Lu Ping to resist. After getting rid of the previous feeling of being watched by the dragon Dharma form, Lu Ping loosened his clenched left hand. A faint colorful flame was suspended in his palm, and the dancing flame was looming. This ball of flame was the seven-colored feather that Lu Ping had activated. After releasing the sealed, sky opening, it was burned to ashes by the heavenly punishment and turned into a ball of flame. Before, Celestial Laozu had also activated a colorful feather that was sealed with the sky punishment, but that feather did not attract the sky punishment. Now it was still in the hands of Celestial Laozu. Celestial Laozu also found that the sky-splitting divine art sealed in the feather did not seem to disappear, but it was slowly absorbing the aura in the surrounding void, as if it was recovering on its own, but this recovery process was obviously extremely long. The ball of fire in Lu Ping's hand obviously couldn't turn back into a rainbow feather, but he could recognize that this ball of fire was condensed from an extremely pure fire elemental origin energy. After a true spirit cultivator condensed the fire elemental origin energy, it was greatly beneficial to the growth of their origin energy, and it was close to perfection. At this time, Lu Ping needed to return to Hebei as soon as possible to stabilize the situation in the cultivation world. This battle with Yanlan Laozu in the northern ice field for 2 days caused such a big movement. The cultivation world was already in an uproar. If he could not return in time, some forces that believed that Lu Ping was not a true spirit cultivator's opponent would take the opportunity to attack Xunling. In fact, Lu Ping's return had indeed shocked all the opponents in the cultivation world. Fighting a true spirit cultivator with a pure yang cultivation base. This was the southwest region of the Central Plains, the border between the endless mountains and the western wilderness. The warm air from the South Sea brought abundant rainfall here, but the high terrain made it difficult to form a large area of forest. Instead, a large area of grassland made this place look like it was covered with a layer of green carpet. Dozens of streaks of light were streaking across the sky towards this place. The person in the lead was the former number 1 direct disciple of the 9 mystical tower, Wei Jun. The dozens of streaks of light behind him were the remaining elite cultivators of the 9 mystical tower who had broken through the middle and lower reaches of the Central Plains Qingming River. They were responsible for the continuation of the entire 9 mystical towers' legacy. There was no longer a place for the 9 mystical tower in the Central Plains. Those big and small forces that had divided up everything in the 9 mystical tower wanted all the cultivators of the 9 mystical tower to die, so that they would never have to worry about the things in their hands. Therefore, they could only escape the Central Plains and come to this barren land, intending to make a comeback. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise came from the streaks of light, causing the neat streaks of light in the sky to fall into chaos. "Eldest senior brother, what's going on?" The 5-element tower master was about to ask, but he saw Wei Jin's expression change drastically. He hurriedly suppressed the anxiety in his heart and secretly transmitted his voice to him. At the same time, he was also reminding him to pay attention to the emotions of the surrounding 9 Mystical Tower disciples. As the future leader of the 9 Mystical Tower, Wei Jin naturally had outstanding ability to remain calm. Even when the 9 Mystical Tower was ambushed by the 10 pure young masters, he was the one who organized the most outstanding third-generation disciples of the 9 Mystical Tower to escape the surveillance of the various sects for the next 100 years. He protected the purest of the 9 Mystical Tower's legacy. His ability had long been recognized by all the remaining forces of the 9 Mystical Tower, including Yang Lan and Lao Zu. However, Wei Jin's expression just now was obviously terrified. Even though it was only for a moment because of the 5-element Tower Master's reminder, many of the 9 Mystical Tower's cultivators noticed it. "Eldest senior brother, what's going on?" Sun Liuhe and the Trinity Tower Master had clearly noticed Wei Jin's expression, and they immediately asked the 5-element Tower Master through voice transmission. Wei Jin secretly took a deep breath, as if he was trying his best to calm the flustered and irritated emotions in his heart. He transmitted his voice to the 3 of them and said, "Junior brothers, just pretend that nothing happened. The soul lamp of Grandmaster Yang that I'm in charge of has been extinguished." The expressions of the Trinity Tower Master and the 5-element Tower Master did not change. However, the Trinity Tower Master's hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, were trembling. The 5-element Tower Master's expression seemed indifferent, but in reality it was stiff. Only Sun Liuhe, who had received much guidance from Yang Lan and Lao Zu when they were trapped in the spatial crack, couldn't control himself when he heard the news. He didn't even bother to transmit his voice to the 5-element Tower Master. He said agitatedly, "What? This is impossible, 6th junior brother." The Trinity Tower Master's face darkened when he saw that many of the 9 Mystical Tower's cultivators' expressions had changed because of Sun Liuhe's shout. He interrupted Sun Liuhe and said loudly, "Why is it impossible? Rumor has it that Lu Tianping escaped from the Crystal Palace's true spirit, Lao Zu, as a pure yang cultivator. He also confronted the 5-element Tower's Lao Zu, Hermit Guang Yuan, in the Central Plains. Such strength is enough to support Jinling's forceful intervention in the battle for the giant spirit stone vein in Shang Mountain. I just don't understand. The 9 Mystical Tower originally had a share of the spirit stone vein in Shang Mountain. Now that we've encountered a temporary setback and have to give up our share of the spirit stone vein, what is the reason for Jinling's public involvement? The Heavenly Xian sect and Wishing School's actions are tantamount to inviting a wolf into the house. It's really infuriating." Sun Liuhe immediately reacted. The news of Lao Zu's death could not be made known to others at this time. Otherwise, everyone's morale would definitely be in disarray. Thus, he immediately followed the Trinity Tower Master's words. Without a true spirit cultivator, it was uncertain whether the 9 Mystical Tower's last few elites would still be able to gather together. At this time, they could only temporarily conceal this news and wait for everyone to settle down. They could then do their best to collect the various inheritances of the 9 Mystical Tower that they had in their hands before considering other matters. However, just as Sun Liuhe finished speaking, he felt his heart palpitate for no reason. His hair stood on end, as if a great danger was about to befall him. "Be careful behind you." Not far away, Wei Jin's eyes bulged as he roared at Sun Liuhe. Sun Liuhe finally sensed that the danger was coming from behind him. However, it was too late to dodge at this time. He could only choose to take it head-on. In that instant, Sun Liuhe's heart turned cold. A pure yang cultivator. The one who sneak attacked him was actually a pure yang cultivator. Just as this thought surfaced in his mind, a huge force came from his right. Sun Liuhe was instantly sent flying. Even his consciousness seemed to have been sent flying as he spun in the air. However, he could clearly hear 5th senior brother's sorrowful cry. "3rd senior brother! What's going on?" The one who was sneak attacked was clearly me, Sun Liuhe. Why would 5th senior brother call me 3rd senior brother? Sun Liuhe's consciousness suddenly jolted, and he woke up from his muddle-headed state. That's not right. The sneak attack just now came from behind me, and there's no way a great cultivator like me would make a mistake in judging that kind of naked killing intent. However, the force that had sent him flying was from the right. The right. He had been sent flying. He hadn't been sneak attacked. He had been saved. After regaining consciousness, Sun Liuhe circulated the true essence in his body with all his might in an attempt to control his body that had been sent flying. However, when his true essence circulated along with his bloodline, he realized that half of his body was extremely numb from the collision. Both his bloodline and true essence were not circulating smoothly. As a result, Sun Liuhe was unable to control his body for a moment. This showed how much force he had used when he was sent flying. At the same time, it also showed that the person who had saved him had been unable to control their own strength in a moment of desperation. The person who had saved him was third senior brother. How could Sun Liuhe not know what had happened when he heard his fifth senior brother's sorrowful cries? Before he could feel any grief or indignation, he instantly saw what had happened where he had been standing when he flipped his body in midair. The master of the Three Talents Pavilion had sent Sun Liuhe flying, but he could no longer dodge the sneak attack. Half of his body had been destroyed by the bright moon ring. His core space and Dharma form had been reduced to nothingness, and he had lost all signs of life. The bright moon ring was the heavenly moon sect's full moon Laozu. Sun Liuhe was overcome with grief, but he saw that eldest senior brother and fifth senior brother had already rushed forward. Sun Liuhe tried his best to circulate the true essence in his body, but he was unable to completely unblock the blood vessels in half of his body. Bang! Sun Liuhe's body crashed into a cliff, causing a small landslide. However, this crash had also completely unblocked the blood vessels in half of his body. Sun Liuhe sprayed blood everywhere in the rubble, but he immediately stood up. Rocks flew everywhere as Sun Liuhe let out a sorrowful roar and charged at full moon Laozu, who was fighting with eldest senior brother, fifth senior brother, and the others. Faced with the Nine Mysteries Pavilion's cultivators' attacks, full moon Laozu was surprised but did not panic. Instead, he chuckled and said, "Your Yanglan Laozu wantonly slaughtered our sect's disciples. Did you ever think that this day would come? Now that Yanglan has fallen, today is the day that the Nine Mysteries Pavilion will be completely erased from the world of cultivators." Wei Jin gritted his teeth and roared, "Which, you're lying? Master Yanglan has already become a true soul cultivator. Who else in the world of cultivators can kill him? My fellow disciples, let's join forces to fight against the enemy and avenge our third junior brother. Kill him!" Sun Liuhe was like a mad tiger. He had trained with Yanglan Laozu for more than 100 years, and not only did he have a close relationship with Yanglan Laozu, but his strength had also improved tremendously. Now that he was using his full strength, he had actually replaced Wei Jin and become the main force of the Nine Mysteries Pavilion's cultivators surrounding Full Moon Laozu. Even though Full Moon Laozu's strength had improved tremendously over the years because he had received the Nine Mysteries Pavilion's inheritance, he was still in a difficult situation when faced with the combined attacks of more than 10 mid and late Dharma adepts from the Nine Mysteries Pavilion. He was beaten so badly that he did not dare to fight back, and there were already several wounds on his body. "Brother Feng Lu, are you still not going to make a move?" Full Moon Laozu's roar caused all the Nine Mysteries Pavilion's cultivators to turn pale. Chapter 1523. Lu Ping's return made the entire Jinling sect overjoyed. With Jinling sect's tacit approval, the news of Lu Ping and Yang Lan's battle in the North Ice Field for 2 days and 2 nights quickly spread throughout the cultivation world. In the end, Yang Lan was forced to use his true spirit energy with all his might. In the end, he triggered Tian Fa and escaped into the North Ice Field's Grand Array Formation. Now that escaping into the Passageway Formation meant death, it meant that Lu Ping had used his pure Yang energy to force Laozu, who had achieved celestial force, to die. For a time, the entire cultivation world was once again stirred up by Lu Tianping. However, the majority of people were skeptical. The various powers in the cultivation world were originally dissatisfied with Jinling's forceful intervention in the division of the spirit mine in Shangshan with the support of the Tianxian sect and Wishing School. However, they chose to remain silent, as if they were observing something. Indeed, not long after, news came from the southwest. The pure young adept of the Tianhua sect, Full Moon Laozu, and the pure young adept of the Spirit Beast sect, Feng Lu, were secretly tracking the remaining 9 mystical tower cultivators. When they received news that Yang Lan Laozu's soul lamp had been extinguished, they immediately launched a sneak attack. Of the 4 remaining 9 mystical tower heads, only Wei Jin, whose cultivation was almost completely destroyed, managed to escape. More than 10 Dharma adepts were either killed or injured, and more than 10 core forging adepts scattered like birds and beasts. In the end, only 1 in 10 survived. After this battle, the 9 mystical tower could be said to have completely lost its legacy. At this time, everyone finally reacted. It turned out that Yang Lan Laozu had really died. Otherwise, Full Moon Laozu and Feng Lu would not have brazenly attacked the remaining 9 mystical tower members. Regarding this matter, there was no need for Lu Tianping and Jinling to lie. The division of the spirit mine in Shangshan was soon settled. Not only did Jinling obtain the rights to the spirit mine in Shangshan, but under the goodwill of the Xiang Palace at the last moment, Jinling's share of the mine was much more than expected. Previously, the cultivation world viewed the rise of Jinling as a nouveau riche and did not think highly of him. But after the battle between Lu Ping and Yang Lan Laozu in the northern ice fields, the cultivation world had to admit that Jinling had already begun to lay the foundation of a holy land in the future. After the 9 mystical towers' legacy was completely destroyed, the original territory of the 9 mystical tower and the cultivation resources left behind were finally divided up by the Heavenly Moon sect, Skyrend, Skyward Pavilion, Lingyun Valley, and other sections. The middle and lower reaches of the Qiming River in the cultivation world of the Middle Earth once again restored the balance of power. After the destruction of the Yuan clan and the division of the giant spirit stone mine in Shangshan, the Xiang Palace, Tianxian sect, Flowing Cloud Pavilion, Wishing School, and Jinling's other sects also came to an end. 3 years later, the Tianxian sect, the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, the Heavenly Moon sect, and the Jinling sect joined forces to launch a war against the Tianxian sect. However, as the Tianxian sect's biggest supporter, the Five Elements sect, strangely remained silent. After the disaster of Mara, the Taishan sect was repeatedly attacked by the Tianxian sect and Jinling. The great divines of the Taishan sect died one after another. They knew that the Taishan sect was only surviving with the support of Wishing School. Now that Jinling sect, Tianxian sect, and other extremely large sects had joined forces, it was clear that they had reached some kind of tacit understanding with the Five Elements sect in private. Under the joint suppression of these 4 large sects, the abandoned Tianxian sect was soon completely removed from the world of cultivation. After the destruction of the Taishan sect, the entire cultivation world seemed to have fallen into a strange peace. Occasionally, some underground altars that had yet to be discovered would go out of control, resulting in a small-scale devil Luo calamity, but they were soon annihilated by the joint forces of humans and demons. In the whole cultivation world, there were very few conflicts between the human and demon clans, as well as between the major sections. Even if there were occasional conflicts, both sides would try their best to restrain themselves and control the scale of the conflicts within the scope that the great divines of pure yang and above could control. In the whole cultivation world, almost all of the great divines who knew the inside story were waiting for the arrival of the 500-year promise made by the Longhuai ancestor. This promise was related to the fundamental belief of the whole cultivation world. Was the 7th patriarch a saint or a thief? Was there an infinite starry world outside this world? Could the idea of immortality and immortality really be realized? Now, there were only 350 years left until the promise. Now, another 30 years had passed. Guitianshan, Laozu, and Lu Tianyuan, master and disciple, had passed the second thunder trial and successfully entered the late Dharma stage. After that, under the orders of the sect, Lu Tianyuan began to take charge of Jinling's crusade against the Hutu sect in the west. Lu Tianyuan also knew that this battle was actually a trial for him by the sect. It was the best way to Jinling's next leader. Although he had the support of people like Lu Ping and Yin Tianchu, he still needed to establish a certain level of prestige within the sect. Jinling did not have a single second-generation adept participating in this battle. Lu Ping and Yin Tianchu were both training in seclusion. The Dharma adepts that Lu Tianyuan could gather were only some of Jinling's third-generation adepts, and all of the fourth-generation adepts who had already formed their Dharma laws. The Dharma adepts that participated in the battle against the Hutu sect included the late Dharma adept Lu Tianyuan, the mid-Dharma adepts Tianru, Tianshang, Tianyong, Tianjian, and Tianyu. Among them, Zhongjian and Ma Yu could combine their swords, and their strength was enough to take on a great adept without losing. The early Dharma adepts included Tianmeng, Tianxian, Tianping, Tianhuan, Tianqi, Tianluo, Tianran, Tianheng, and Tiandeng. Among them, the five after Tianqi were all fourth-generation Dharma adepts of Jinling and were true disciples. Other than Tianqi and Tianluo, who were disciples of Lu Ping, Tianran was a disciple of Lu Tianyuan, Tianheng was a disciple of Tianyong, and Tiandeng was a disciple of Zhang Xuanqing, who had been the leader of Jinling's side hall for many years. Other than that, Lu Tianyuan had also gathered more than 20 third-generation disciples in the late core forging stage, 50 fourth-generation disciples in the core forging stage, and more than 100 fifth-generation disciples in the blood condensation stage to participate in this battle. Lu Tianyuan had crossed the Hebei training world and traveled west for 20 years. During this time, he had also fought with various forces in Central Plains. Although Jinling's side had suffered many casualties, Lu Tianyuan had ultimately withstood the pressure from the various forces and expanded his territory for 3,000 miles to the west, wiping out all of the Hutu sect's forces. After this battle, Jinling's sphere of influence in Central Plains became more and more stable, and Lu Tianyuan had also completely established his position as the successor of the Hutu sect in Jinling. 20 years later, Lu Tianyuan, who had been in charge of the Hutu sect for hundreds of years, was the main driving force behind the rise of Jinling from an unknown medium-sized sect in the North Sea to a large sect, and was even the main planner who had laid the foundation for Jinling to become a holy land in the future. Jinling's first Hutu sect leader, Lu Tianyuan, announced his retirement. The position of Hutu sect leader was taken over by the third-generation cultivator, Lu Tianyuan. After Lu Tianyuan took over as the Hutu sect leader of Jinling, the strength of the Hutu sect grew steadily. Jinling's influence in the training world continued to expand. Whether it was in the North Sea, Central Plains, or the East Sea, its sphere of influence was further consolidated. At the same time, Ji Tianxian had survived his second lightning tribulation and became the fourth late Dharma adept in the third generation of Jinling. Another 30 years passed, and the North Sea training world once again experienced a pure yang lightning tribulation. Jinling's third-generation cultivator, Yin Tianchu, who had always been known as the Demon Sword, successfully condensed a pure yang Dharma power and became Jinling's second pure yang adept after Lu Ping. Chapter 1524. Yuan Jinglei did not know when he had been followed by the tortoise behind him. In any case, he had just snatched the item that he had been plotting for a long time, and had just stepped out of the endless mountains when he was attacked by the tortoise. It was obvious that he had lost his life. Yuan Jinglei had also obtained a ball of thunder essence from the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash when the Yuan clan was destroyed, allowing his level of practice to be pushed to the peak of the late Dharma stage. He was only a hair's breadth away from the pure yang stage. Furthermore, he was proficient in the thunder evasion technique, and after refining that ball of thunder essence, his speed was even faster. In addition, although the tortoise behind him had a pure yang level of practice, it had obviously inherited Yuan Jinglei's evasion technique. This allowed Yuan Jinglei to narrowly escape at the last moment. As a core member of the Yuan clan, Yuan Jinglei naturally knew a thing or two about the Thunder Essence. The moment he had obtained the Thunder Essence, he had also realized, just like Yuan Feixiang, that the Yuan clan had probably met with a great calamity. Otherwise, the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash of the Guardian family would definitely not have dispersed the Thunder Essence on its own. This was something that only the successor to the position of the family leader would be able to obtain from the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash to improve the quality of the calabash that they had refined or to directly increase their level of practice. It was a pity that the next successor to the Yuan clan had been Yuan Feixiang. Yuan Jinglei had not obtained the method to refine the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash himself. This was also the main reason why he had taken the risk to enter the Endless Mountains this time. Without the 7 treasures Thunder Gourd to continue nurturing this drop of thunder origin, Yuan Jinglei had no choice but to use it to increase his level of training. However, he also knew that using it this way was actually a huge waste of the essence of the thunder origin. The essence that he could refine for his own use was actually less than 1/10 of the essence of the thunder origin. The rest was all wasted, even though his level of training had increased to the pinnacle of the late Dharma stage. However, he had no other choice. He could only hate Yuan Feixiang even more. If Yuan Feixiang had not stolen the position of successor from him, how could he not have obtained the method to refine the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash? If he could refine a Thunder Calabash in his hands, he could completely nurture the origin essence in the Thunder Calabash, and only use it after he had advanced to the pure Yang stage. In this way, he could at least refine 40 to 50% of this drop of origin essence, and push his level of practice to the peak of the pure Yang stage in one fell swoop. Moreover, when the head of the clan refined the origin essence, he would often gather a few trusted aides to go into seclusion with him. After the origin essence that the head of the clan could not refine was released, it would be absorbed by the trusted aides. This would also greatly increase the strength of these people, thus becoming a method for the head of the clan to win over the hearts of the people. This was also the fundamental reason why the pure Yang adepts of the Yuan clan had been able to maintain their extremely strong strength and the strong sense of unity within the clan. Although Yuan Jinglei's cultivation had been promoted to the peak of the Grand Cultivator, and his Thunder Escape secret technique had reached the pinnacle, Yuan Jinglei still suffered extremely serious injuries under the sneak attack of the pure Yang tyrannical turtle. However, at this time, he could only suppress the injuries in his body and escape. After all, this turtle was a pure Yang adept. His speed was relatively slow. Once Yuan Jinglei's injuries affected his speed of escape, the turtle behind him would inevitably kill him. Yuan Jinglei knew that his current situation was getting worse. The injuries in his body gradually worsened because of his forced escape, and even began to counterattack his Jingyuan. Haha, Yuan Jinglei, leave behind the thing you snatched from the Endless Mountain, and the old man will spare your life. Although Xiang Huitian had been shocked by Yuan Jinglei's escape technique and regretted that he hadn't been able to kill Yuan Jinglei in one fell swoop, he could tell that Yuan Jinglei was running out of energy. If it weren't for Xiang Huitian's apprehension, he would have long since taken the item from Yuan Jinglei's hand. Hee, old turtle, who are you trying to fool? Yuan Jinglei snorted disdainfully. Don't tell me your Bagui clan doesn't know how important this thing is. Spare my life? I'm afraid you're going to kill me immediately after obtaining it. I suggest that you don't chase too closely, lest I accidentally break the thing in my hand in a moment of desperation. If that happens, you old tortoise will be left with nothing to show for it. Xiang Huitian looked a little annoyed. Yuan Jinglei, you have to understand that the Yuan clan is now the public enemy of the cultivation world. You're like a rat on the street. Although the old man wants the thing in your hands, he might not necessarily obtain it. If you offend the old man, he just has to shout, and countless people will come chasing after you. Do you think you can still escape when that time comes? Yuan Jinglei opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he suddenly felt a reverse flow in his body. Yuan Jinglei cursed inwardly. He couldn't suppress the injuries in his body any longer. Before he could even think about it, the reverse flow had already rushed out of his mouth and turned into a mouthful of dirty blood. Xiang Guotian had been waiting for this moment. He had a good grasp of his timing. Although Yuan Jinglei had escaped from his hands due to his carelessness, Xiang Guotian had adjusted his mentality and quickly determined the extent of Yuan Jinglei's injuries after hitting him. He had purposely lured Yuan Jinglei to speak during the chase, but he was actually secretly using a method to trigger the suppressed injuries in Yuan Jinglei's body. This could be considered a secret technique of the Bagui clan, and it was rarely used. Not many people knew about it, so Yuan Jinglei had unknowingly fallen into his trap. The Bagui clan was not good at escape techniques, but that was only relative. Xiang Guotian was a pure yang cultivator. No matter how bad his escape techniques were, there was no way he could let Yuan Jinglei escape again under such circumstances. A shadow loomed over Yuan Jinglei's head. When he raised his head, he saw a mountainous foot descending from the sky. Yuan Jinglei slammed his hand on his chest. This time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The only difference was that there was a purple-gold electric light dancing in the blood. When the electric light turned into a ball of light in the blood, Yuan Jinglei had already appeared several dozen kilometers away. "Humph, where do you think you're going?" Xiang Guotian's roar was like rolling thunder that came from the horizon. A strange sound wave penetrated into Yuan Jinglei's body. His heartbeat immediately became chaotic, and his blood vessels even started flowing in reverse. Not only was his essential essence unable to keep up, but he was also at risk of chi deviation. "I must persevere. This is the forest in the periphery of the endless mountains. As long as I reach that place, there will be a chance. How can I, Yuan Jinglei, die here? I still want to break the destiny of the Yuan clan and become the Thunder Rock true spirit." Yuan Jinglei decided to stop suppressing his injuries. He only used his remaining essential essence to protect his heart, allowing the disturbed blood vessels in his body to worsen. Then, he gathered all the essential essence in his body and turned into a bolt of lightning, flying forward again. The moment he left, dark clouds rolled in the sky. A gigantic tortoise that almost covered half of the sky lay on top of the dark clouds. It looked as if it would jump down at any time and use its huge body to crush all opponents. Yuan Jinglei's self-mutilating actions were clearly out of Xiang Guotian's expectations. However, the item on Yuan Jinglei was very useful to the Bagui clan. It was something that the current true spirit of the Bagui clan, Laozu, had secretly passed down to all pure yang cultivators of the Bagui clan. Otherwise, Xiang Guotian would not have chased after him so relentlessly. Xiang Guotian's real body slid through the sea of clouds. His huge body once again dashed dozens of miles away. Yuan Jinglei's tottering figure once again appeared in Xiang Guotian's line of sight. This time, this kid was really at the end of his rope. For a late Dharma adept to be able to hold on until now, it was no wonder that he was one of the most outstanding third-generation adepts in the entire cultivation world. To be able to escape from the old man for so long, his strength was probably second only to the two-sword immortals. "Kid, where can you run to this time?" Xiang Guotian shook the sea of clouds beneath him and rushed toward Yuan Jinglei. At this time, what he was most afraid of was that Yuan Jinglei would destroy the treasure in his hand when he saw that there was no hope of escaping. However, at this moment, Yuan Jinglei suddenly turned around and flashed a strange smile at Xiang Guotian. Xiang Guotian instinctively felt that something was wrong. However, he did not believe that Yuan Jinglei had any other way to turn the tables. Boundless clouds transformed into all sorts of weapons and treasures in midair, smashing toward Yuan Jinglei's body. Yuan Jinglei knelt on the ground and slammed his right palm hard on the ground. Purple gold lightning spread out from his palm in a zigzagging arc. From Xiang Guotian's perspective, it formed a huge lightning array in midair. This was not a simple array formation. There was already an array foundation lying in ambush here. Xiang Guotian did not expect Yuan Jinglei to be able to leave such a backup plan in such a remote place. He was surprised and shocked, but he had no choice but to release the arrow on the bow. Just as Yuan Jinglei was about to be swallowed by the sea of clouds, the ground suddenly caved in. A thick black fog spewed out from the collapsed ground, and a bottomless abyss appeared where Yuan Jinglei had been standing. Terrifying roars came from the abyss. Mara Cave! So this was a Mara Cave! Xiang Guotian was shocked. He immediately understood what Yuan Jinglei's backup plan was. Before he could find Yuan Jinglei again, a heavenly demon and 4 Asuras rushed out of the abyss one after another. In addition, there were several Jade Mara, Blood Mara, and some big and small Mara rushing towards Xiang Guotian. Dozens of feet away, Yuan Jinglei looked like a ferocious ghost. However, when he saw that Xiang Guotian was surrounded by more than 100 Mara, he chuckled. 3 streams of light flashed in his hands, and he resisted the urge to leave this place. However, the moment he turned around, a black figure suddenly flashed in front of him. Yuan Jinglei cursed inwardly. He suddenly felt a bone-chilling sensation on his right wrist. When he turned his head, he saw a hand holding 3 streams of light dancing in the air. A black figure suddenly appeared in the void and grabbed it. The 3 streams of light flashed, and the hand smashed toward Yuan Jinglei's face. No! Yuan Jinglei let out a crazy roar. He couldn't care less about his severed right hand and his body, which was already at its limits. Thunder exploded under his feet, and he wanted to forcefully chase after the figure. However, the moment he grabbed his right hand that was smashing toward him, the black figure from before appeared behind Yuan Jinglei for some reason. A short blade silently sank into Yuan Jinglei's back. Yuan Jinglei tried his best to turn his head to see who killed him, but he suddenly felt the back of his back loosen. The person had already disappeared again. Yuan Jinglei fell to the ground, and the vitality in his eyes gradually disappeared. He still didn't know who killed him. Chapter 1525. After Lu Ping obtained the complete Soaring Dragon Galaxy technique, he had some doubts about the 5 elements land he had entered in the South China Sea. After that, during the Battle of Shangshan to exterminate the Yuan clan, he met the true spirit cultivator Xiang Laozu of the Bagui clan. Lu Ping's suspicions deepened. This time, after Yin Tianchu became a pure Yang cultivator, he went out to travel. Lu Ping entrusted him to go to the South China Sea to investigate the Bagui clan's movements. Unexpectedly, not long after entering the South China Sea, he fell into a pure Yang Bagui clan. He followed it all the way into the Central Plains and found traces of Yuan Jinglei on the outskirts of the endless mountain range. Yin Tianchu didn't know if Xiang Guotian already knew of Yuan Jinglei's goal or if he had accidentally stumbled upon it. However, it was obvious that Yuan Jinglei had something extraordinary. Since that was the case, Yin Tianchu didn't mind taking advantage of the situation. The moment Yin Tianchu grabbed the 3 rays of light, he already knew what they were. They were the life feathers of a member of the Endless Mountain Peacock royalty. The Endless Mountain Demon Peacock clan was known as the #1 demon clan in the cultivation world. They were so powerful that even the East China Sea green sea snakes, the North Ice Plains spiritual great apes, and the South China Sea Bagui clan were slightly inferior to them. Although the Demon Peacock clan inherited Ping Doran's bloodline, there was still a small group of people with the purest bloodline in the Demon Peacock clan. They were known as the Peacock royalty. Compared to the Demon Peacock clan, the Peacock royalty's bloodline was pure, and the inherited memories in their bloodline were more detailed. Among the demon cultivators of the same level, the royal family was more powerful. Although they only accounted for 1/7 of the entire Demon Peacock clan, they firmly controlled the entire Demon Peacock clan. As for the Peacock royal family, perhaps it was due to their bloodline that they were able to condense the essence of their life feather. This kind of life feather sealed with their life feather could release a tremendous amount of power even if the Peacock royal family cultivator didn't need to mix their life essence. In a battle, the Peacock royalty cultivator would always have 1 or 2 more supreme abilities than their opponent. Furthermore, they were almost instantaneous attacks that were difficult to defend against. It could be said that the peacock royalty cultivator's trump card. At the same time, due to the fact that there was a life-bound ability sealed within it, many cultivators from the peacock royal clan would use this as a final method to perish together with their enemies. Thus, obtaining this life-bound plume feather was extremely difficult. However, Yuan Jinglei had obtained 3 peacock royalty life feathers. What was even rarer was that these 3 feathers had obviously come from 3 different peacock royalty cultivators. This meant that Yuan Jinglei had been able to silently kill 3 royal family demon cultivators above the Dharma realm in the Endless Mountains and escape unscathed. If he hadn't been ambushed by Xianghua Tian, even Yin Tianchu would have admired Yuan Jinglei's methods. Yin Tianchu raised his head to look at the Mara group that was still fighting Xianghua Tian. It seemed that Xianghua Tian had seen everything that had happened. However, the many Mara were clearly under Yuan Jinglei's control. They were now risking their lives to attack Xianghua Tian. In a hurry, Xianghua Tian was entangled with the Mara group and couldn't free himself. At this time, Xianghua Tian was obviously most afraid that Yin Tianchu would cooperate with the Mara group to assassinate him. With Yin Tianchu's pure yang cultivation level and the mysterious assassination ability that he had previously displayed, Xianghua Tian really wasn't confident that he could escape unscathed under the entanglement of the Mara group. Unfortunately, according to Yin Tianchu's divine sense, the previous battle had already alarmed the cultivators of the nearby sections. At this time, there were several rays of light coming from different directions. The Ba Turtle clan used their head-shrinking turtle technique to defend themselves. Even Yin Tianchu couldn't do anything to them in a short period of time. Helpless, Yin Tianchu could only hide in the void and retreat first. Above the North Sea, a white fog slowly gathered above the Jinling sect's Taoist right site, the Tianling Mountain on the giant island, Tianling Island, where the Jinling sect's training ground was located. At first, the Jinling people thought that this phenomenon was formed because the spirit vein in the dojo had been operating well over the years and the spirit chi had become increasingly dense. However, after dozens of days, the white fog on Heaven's Spirit Mountain gradually became denser. At this time, the true spirit cultivators realized that even if the spirit chi was dense, it couldn't grow so quickly. Moreover, it couldn't stay there forever. This white fog should be a combination of the spirit chi that the dojo was releasing and the clouds. However, after another half a year, not only did the spirit fog on Heaven's Spirit Mountain become denser, but it even started to cover the entire Heaven's Spirit Mountain. The clouds even started to spread downwards and gradually spread over Heaven's Spirit Island. Originally, the Jinling cultivators thought that as the white fog spread downwards, it would definitely sweep the dense spirit chi from the top of Heaven's Spirit Mountain and spread it to the entire Heaven's Spirit Island. That way, the entire Jinling would be able to enjoy the dense spirit chi on Heaven's Spirit Mountain. However, the result was obviously very disappointing for the Jinling cultivators. After the white fog spread, not only did it not bring the dense spirit chi from the top of Heaven's Spirit Mountain, it instead absorbed the originally not very dense spirit chi from the top of Heaven's Spirit Mountain and became even thinner. At this time, the Jinling cultivators finally realized that it might not be as simple as the spirit chi, clouds, and water vapor that they had imagined. The clouds gradually spread, and after an entire year, it even affected the massive island. The entire Heaven Spirit Island looked misty from the sea, and the Heaven Spirit Mountain in the center was completely covered by the thick white fog. From the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, the white fog covered the entire Jinling's dojo like a fairyland. However, only cultivators who had been there would understand that this fairyland-like place was not even as rich in spiritual chi as it was before Fei Ling Island had been merged. Such a natural phenomenon naturally greatly puzzled the Jinling cultivators. Cultivators constantly asked the high-grade senior cultivators of the sect about the reason, but the high-grade cultivators of Jinling remained silent. However, many of the sect's disciples could guess from the inadvertent joy on the senior cultivators' faces that this must be a joyous occasion for the sect. The white fog continued to spread. After a year and a half, Even the Heaven Spirit Island, with a radius of over 1,500 kilometers, was completely covered by the fog, and it began to slowly spread to the surrounding sea. This time, the fog did not spread from the Heaven Spirit Mountain, but from the seawater. If a cultivator were to observe with their spiritual sense, they would discover that traces of water spiritual chi and kui water essence were being stripped from the seawater and slowly converging toward the top of the Heaven Spirit Mountain like an invisible stream of water. At the same time, it also led to the evaporation of water vapor and the formation of the fog. At this time, if a great mage who cultivated eye techniques to perfection looked toward the top of the Heaven Spirit Mountain, they would discover that a huge bottomless vortex had formed at the top of the mountain. 2 whole years had passed, and all the heaven and earth spiritual chi that had gathered from the surrounding 2,000 miles had disappeared into the bottomless abyss. However, this huge whirlpool was still spinning slowly, like a taotai that would never be satisfied. The phenomenon of Junling quickly attracted the attention of the entire North Sea cultivation world, and this phenomenon was even spread to the entire cultivation world through some people. Such a huge natural phenomenon was no longer something that ordinary great cultivators could achieve, so many people naturally targeted Lu Ping. Although he was known as the North Sea Water Sword Immortal, most people already knew that Lu Ping was not a sword cultivator. Therefore, only Lu Tianping and Lu Tianping could create such a phenomenon in the North Sea. However, it was naturally impossible for Lu Tianping to summon such a phenomenon in the North Sea for no reason. In the cultivation world, there were pure yang cultivators who had been consulted by others and admitted that they would not be able to create such a spectacle. There were people who had long suspected that Lu Tianping was at the critical stage of becoming a true spirit, and in order to condense a huge amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he had no choice but to create such a shocking phenomenon. However, very quickly the news spread from the disciples of the 5 great sacred lands and a few other clans that had true spirit cultivators. When many true spirit cultivators heard about this phenomenon, their faces were filled with shock. It was obvious that this phenomenon was not only for pure yang cultivators, but even for true spirit cultivators. It was beyond their knowledge. Was this really Lu Tianping becoming a true spirit? Lu Tianping's strength was actually so tyrannical, to be able to create such a phenomenon that even true spirit cultivators would be dumbfounded before he had even completely advanced to the true spirit cultivator, and the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth was usually the direct proof of a cultivator's strength. In other words, Lu Tianping's strength still surpassed the vast majority of ordinary true spirit cultivators. It had to be known that in the North Sea, the white clouds were still spreading, which meant that Lu Tianping's strength was still growing. When he truly stabilized his cultivation, just how strong would he be? Many people were secretly calculating in their hearts. At that time, in the entire world, perhaps only the Longhui ancestor in the East Sea Parish secret grounds would know the true limits of Lu Tianping. 3 years had passed, and the clouds that had begun to spread from the top of Heaven's Spirit Mountain had already covered a radius of 3,000 kilometers. The sea around Heaven's Spirit Island was completely shrouded by thick clouds, and it even affected the many cultivators who entered and left Heaven's Spirit Island. This was because even the cultivators' divine senses would be affected by the clouds, and there would often be cultivators with weak cultivations who would lose their way in the clouds. Everyone in Jiling rejoiced. At this moment, even the high-ranking cultivators in Junling were certain that this phenomenon would only be formed when their sex water sword immortal was condensing her true spirit. However, just as everyone in Junling was preparing to welcome the birth of the peaceful Laozu, the process was delayed by another 2 years. During these 2 years, the sea 5,000 kilometers away from Heaven's Spirit Mountain was covered in a thin layer of fog. At this moment, Lu Ping, who was in the 7-star grotto heaven on top of Heavenly Spirit Mountain, finally opened his eyes. The corners of his mouth slowly curled up into a gratified smile. Then, he slowly raised his head, stretched out his finger and flicked it gently. Roar! A noble existence that seemed to have come from ancient times announced its appearance with a loud roar that could directly shake one's soul. The wind and clouds surged at the top of Heaven's Spirit Mountain, and the entire world changed color. An uplifting roar instantly spread throughout Zhenling on Heaven's Spirit Island. Congratulations to the peaceful Laozu! Congratulations to the Zhenling! Congratulations to the world! You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.